believe I'm live. What have YouTube done? Oh, wow. A whole new back end to look at, but never mind that. There's loads of chat. Hello, Kim. Mike's pondering whether I'm live or not.
You are live.
I know I'm trusting YouTube. Trust the YouTube. Hello, Debbie. Sunny Southern California. I can't begin to tell you how hot it is here. I am not a happy bunny. In fact, it's been all right, actually, hasn't it, with the fans on? But obviously, we've had to turn them off, or you wouldn't hear a thing. So, giddy. Hello, Jonathan. I hope I don't miss anybody. I've heard there's some interesting things with a pair of shorts going on, Kim. Just saying. Jonathan, it would be almost as good as your unboxing of your new toy. In fact, I think the two could be complementary. Good morning, Neil. Is BK with you? If he is, good morning. And who else have I missed? Don't let me miss anybody, Mike. Don't let me miss anybody.
Lots of people.
Mark, hello. Hello.
Some of whom I don't recognise.
Ooh,
maybe
new people.
Maybe first timers here.
Well, you are very, very welcome. Hello, Deborah. All the Debs are in. All the Debs are in. CQ, Deb. Trying to catch up. Hello, Paul. Hello, William. Ooh, Normandy and France. That sounds fabulous. We're boiling hot in lockdown Manchester in the UK. Yes, we're locked down again. Don't ask. Is the iMac being chilled and tuned? Well, it's had a fan on it for the last 2 nights, because for the 2 nights prior to that, I came in the morning. Well, when I say morning, I work nights. So about lunchtime. And it was dead. So I've left it on. But we've had... Not good, no. We're definitely going to keep it shortish tonight, aren't we? It's not going to be a 5-hour epic. The machine won't take it, I'm telling you. It absolutely won't. Right, I'm going to make sure... I'm going to see if there's anything else I can turn off. I've got a sneaking suspicion there really isn't. No, there isn't. Could I lose Firefox? No, I couldn't lose Firefox. No, in that case, it's as good as it's going to get. So I'm going to make sure that you can see my screen. There we go. Hopefully you can see that. And then we'll get into the slides and see. We'll have to open it. I can't really close Chrome. I can't really close my mail app either because I'm going to use it in the demo. Oh, could I lose Vivaldi? I'm actually having an idea, Mike. What I'm going to do, which might or might not help. It'll help the machine, but it won't help me. How bad is the audio if I put the fan up here? How much worse is that?
I'll tell you in a second.
I'll move on to what's happening, and as we move on, it's definitely got the fan on the table.
No, it's fine. Right,
in that case, the computer has the benefit of the fan, and I don't.
Do you want this fan?
So I'm sitting in a soggy mess. No, it'll be fine.
Well, it's not on.
It's fine. We don't want to put 2 on. We don't want to push it. If I wanted to be cool, I'd put this baby on. It's an industrial fan. On 1, it can blow you over. On 4, don't ask.
Well, they can't hear the fan.
Excellent.
Which bodes well for the future.
It does. What, global warming and all that, you mean? Never mind. Right, we've got the week at MacBites headquarters, obviously. Busy old week. And now it wants to show me new features it's launched and stuff. Then we've got Notion. There is a Notion update. It might rock your boat. It doesn't particularly thrill me, but we'll see that. Then I found some sneaky toys that they've sneaked inside Gmail, behind my back, without telling me. Not only that, but I also found sneaky new toys in Chrome as well, again, without telling me. Can't be having this. I've had lots of requests for things to do with presentations, so I've put together a couple of tips and tricks you might find useful. Within there is 2 demonstrations, or is it 1 demonstration? No, it's 2. 2 demonstrations of Affinity. It could be Affinity Photo or Affinity Designer. You could do the same thing in both. So there is some affinity in the presentation stuff. The freebie, there is a demo of it, because it's rather a good toy. Then Mike's doing array functions.
Hooray!
I only did array things when I was programming. Never done it in Excel.
You didn't hear that, did you?
I did.
Hooray!
Excellent, Mike. Fabulous. And then we have part 3 of DEVONthink. We've spent 2 weeks shoving stuff in there. We are now going to spend some time getting it back out again. Hopefully in a useful way and format, etc. Right, am I now back to where I can see what's going on? That'll do. Right, if you're watching, make sure that you're watching in 720p, because it did the 360p for you last week, didn't it? And you wondered why everything was blurry.
Yeah,
so it's got a mind of its own, has YouTube.
720 this week.
Oh, excellent. Just make sure that your lower cog in the lower right-hand corner that you set to 720, and it'll be a lot less blurry. While you're there, if there's anything you find useful, give us a thumbs up. It really helps. But what have we been up to? Oh, there are no words for the mischief that we get into. All started on Saturday with a by request show. This time, it was the weather. You surpassed yourselves. If you've never been with us for a Brooklands 196 by request show, it is a 5-hour music extravaganza on a Saturday night on brooklands196.com, which is our other radio station. And we've started to theme it since the 4th of July, when we had the 4th of July theme. But this time it was the weather. But fear not, the food of the week before was taken care of when the Tesco man arrived. Now, it's the obligatory grocery delivery. Now, the week before it was Asda, but the week before that, the Tesco operative got a little bit too close to Mike. He made sure he wasn't taking any chances this time. Were you, babe? Very fetching, I thought. As Kim pointed out live, very 2020. 2020 chic. If you'd have been sat there looking like that last year, we'd have probably locked you up. But never mind. I enjoyed it. Then on Sunday, he wasn't a happy bunny, were you? No. You weren't grumpy this week.
No, I wasn't grumpy this week.
Oh, hang on, I've got the wrong one. No, it's that one. Yes. Wasn't grumpy this week because they won, didn't they?
Yes.
Which meant...
they finished third.
Third place in the league. Nothing short of a miracle. Nothing short of a miracle. But that wasn't all we did on Sunday. No! Of much more significance was... we were busy. Copious plotting and planning was what was going on. But since we were somewhat exhausted, plotting and planning was as far as we got. But yes, what you're looking at there is behind the scenes of what it takes to put a MacBites together. If you're wondering, it's Scrivener. It shows all the previous shows in the sidebar on the left, going right the way back to Bar Humbug, which was episode 79. If you look below that, there's one tiny show peeking there that only one MacBiter has ever heard. It was Jonathan's new car special. Now, Jonathan's just got a new car, hasn't he?
He has.
So we might need another Jonathan's new car special. That was a special for Jonathan. The big window is the show art for the recording notes. So it's not the show art that you see on the website, because it says MacBites right across the top. So it's more of a magazine cover. It's A4 size, that. And then the contents of the show that we were prepping, what we were doing. So we talked about the first full look of the iPhone 12. Don't believe it, it wasn't. And so forth. And then there is the tiny show art, which is in the synopsis at the top. But that is how we put together a MacBite. So it's not thrown together, this, you know. And while you're there, Jonathan, if we look at the top left, just saying, no title, but there's 129. We weren't pulling your leg, were we, Mike?
No.
That show you missed? Terrible. Terrible. It was all explained. But on Monday, we were marooned, weren't we? But we had a surprise for you. There was a lot of teasing went on. And Jonathan was nowhere in sight that night, because after the show we had a swift out and we had an appointment with the studio. It was time to get back into the studio so that on Tuesday 128 could be released. Do you know what that meant? Monday was Two Show Monday, and today's Two Show Friday, and tomorrow, does that count if it's Brooklands?
Yes.
Two Show Saturday. Do you remember when we couldn't get one out in a month? Now Wednesday. Yeah, I was woken unceremoniously on Wednesday. Why can't people just stay in the house? Don't have work coming in. Don't do anything else. It's ludicrously disruptive. And yes, that car, the blue one, is on the wrong side of the road. For our US viewers, you're going to have to trust me on that. It really is on the wrong side of the road. There's plenty of room. I don't know why it was on the wrong side of the road, but I was just glad that there was nobody trying to use the pavement. Not only did we have the hulking truck outside, but they actually had a little mini truck all over the pavement as well, as they dug holes. But Wednesday did get better. The long-awaited arrival of my new toy. Now, we were hoping for an unboxing, but in the weather, I don't think it'd cope. I really don't think it'd cope. But let's just say it will be back next week. We will aim for that. Then on Thursday, this was a great day. Thursday, I was busy working away, minding my own business. Mike had gone to bed early when all of a sudden, completely out of the blue, lockdown. We are back in lockdown. This is our area. The light area is Greater Manchester. That becomes significant later. We are literally, well, we're not actually on the cusp of it, are we, Mike? We're semi on the cusp of it. Let's get that on a shoot. We're there. In fact, more precisely, that road there that's incredibly straight, that's us. So we're probably about there. Right there. Which is fabulous, but means we're within the Greater Manchester border, which heads all the way over to Skelmersdale. I didn't know that, Mike. But it did. So, lockdown. We need to do that, Mike. Lockdown, indeed we were. But what was really scary was there were people in Manchester who did not know where Greater Manchester was. Obviously, you can see there are little boroughs in there. The lighter blue, these ones, that's not us. That's Blackburn and Darwen, I do believe. So that's not us. But the darker bit is Greater Manchester. And we are, as I've said, about here. So most unfortunately, a little bit further south would have been all right, but we're not. So we got put into lockdown with 2 hours, 5 minutes notice. So if you had somebody on the way to stay for the weekend, they're not. Turn them round. Yeah. So the mayor got involved. Don't know how come, given the time of night.
William was born at Old Trafford.
Oh, that's very close.
It is.
It literally, this came out of nowhere, and it was announced on Twitter. Do you think Donald Trump's become an advisor to the government?
Probably.
So that was Thursday night. Friday, well, 2 show Friday. We've already had one show. This herewith is the second, so let's get on with it. Oh, the end of July, how did that happen? Right, there was a Notion update this week. I'm waiting, you know this, don't you, for the timeline? Yeah, it's not that. It's sign into Notion with your Apple ID. So my first thought was, yawn. You can already sign in with Google. That's been there a long time. But now you can sign in with Apple. But if we just go back there, the reason that's significant is you can use Face ID or Touch ID on iOS. So rather than typing anything in, if you sign in with Apple, it's a quicker option. But, you know, I'm like, really? Awesome. The rest of it seemed to be bug fixes, which, while they're great, and one of them has been rumbling on for a while, which is the fourth one there. Fixes a bug that caused page icons to be misaligned in app mentions. Yeah, they're a mess, aren't they? They've been a mess since the last update. So good to see that they are updating things. But I want my timeline view. And I want it now. It's like a trio jingle, isn't it, Mike? I want it and I want it now. The reason I'm getting impatient is, apart from the fact, of course, I'm impatient, it's a new toy, is the fact they previewed this about 9-10 months ago. And normally when a company previews something, it's not going to be more than 2 months. But no, still waiting. Better news on the Gmail settings update, though. I was dissing Gmail last week for forcing things upon me in the mobile app, which was when I went to looking and found something good, which I'll show you. Now, most of us have tried Outlook at one time or another. Let me know in the chat, what client do you use and have you ever used Outlook? But Outlook gave you, and has done for years and years, an option to have the mails listed and then a huge preview window. You can have it either horizontal, like that, or you can even have it vertical. Gmail, you can see the title of the mail, and on the left-hand side, there's a load of stuff you're never going to use. That's the interface. But they've made some changes. So let's go and have a look at the changes they have made. Right, I'm looking for my mail client. There we go. There's my mail client. And I've got 2 mails in there. Right, what we're looking at, although this is a mail client, right, which is mail plain, it's just a wrapper to wrap around the website. So this will work in a mail client like Mailplane, that's just a wrapper, or on the websites, makes no difference. Now, first thing to look at, garbage we have in here. Obviously, it is quite handy to have all of the folders on the left-hand side. That always was quite handy. But you've got this Google Meet thing, and this was discussed on the last show, which was why it was called the COVID Cat Collection, chatting with Norman Collier in a time warp, because whenever we've tried Google Meet, it worked quite well for maybe 2-3 times we tried it. And then there was an echo, and then there was a delay, and it was useless. We actually were using it to record the show. So we don't use Meet anymore, we use Zoom. And I'm never going to use Hangouts either. Or a chat, to be honest. So those things are like forced upon you at the bottom. Right, so in here, when you go to the settings before, you used to have settings that would adjust what you saw in this view. So you would have lots of mails, and maybe you've got attachments like I have with these 2 mails, and you used to be able to change how compact it was, whether you saw that preview or not, whether it was tight, compact, whether there was a bigger preview, and that was it. But the settings are up here, and when you click on your settings now, these are now, it's complete redesign, completely redesigned. You have the density. In fact, these are, before we go any further, are quick settings. So all the settings that you used to see are now hidden under here. These are just the quick settings. So the first thing is what we've always had there. The default, which shows you the preview. Comfortable, which gives you a little bit of breathing space, but doesn't show you the preview of the documents. And compact, which, if you've got an overflowing inbox, I guess, maybe, you might need. But all these are going to do, when you apply them, is just change the view like that. So that doesn't even look that much different. Oh, actually it does. It's a bit tight, that. The indication you have an attachment then is the paperclip icon. Must admit, I've left it at the default. I don't get attachments that often, but I never really open them from there. It's just really an indication that they've got an attachment, but I tend to leave it there. You've also got your themes, so you can apply a theme to it. Then you've got your type of inbox. Now, by default, have you still got 3 groupings in yours, or did you nuke them?
I nuke them.
I totally nuked them. There's the default is actually, now it says their default at the top, and then it says customize, but underneath it says important first, on red first, starred, priority. But the default was actually a priority inbox, and it drove me insane. Couldn't be doing with it at all. So what I did manage to do was get rid of all the priorities thing, and I'm also not interested in. I like to keep inbox 0, or as near as. You can see I've got 25 mails in my really inbox over there. This inbox that we're looking at is still my inbox, but this is a different account that I use to get notifications. I did explain that in a show a while back. Maybe Mike could find out which one. But I did explain all of that. So the only mails that would be in here would be from Mike, our parishes, because I look at the newsletter, and Scrivener. And they're the only things that would be in this inbox. That's why I'm using it for a demo. So I turned off all of those. But the important things to think about are these at the bottom, because these are new. One thing Mike loathes, and I loathe it just as much, is conversation view. I cannot follow an email thread in conversation view. It drives me insane, but your mileage may vary. I turned it off. Interesting thing in here is the new reading pane. So the default has always been no split. And that can slow you down processing your inbox because it has to refresh the page every time you click on an email. And this was why when Mike said, I manage my mail in a browser, I nearly fell off the chair. Because at the time I wasn't managing it in a browser. And I thought, but you wouldn't have a preview window, and you wouldn't have this, and you wouldn't have that. I've settled with MailPlane pretty much for one particular reason, which is relevant to what we're going to look at later in DEVONthink. And that is, I can click on a mail. So there's the actual mail itself. And I can use a shortcut key. And it says, send it to DEVONthink. Do you want to include the attachments, which is the church newsletter? And I can, in fact, on that one, it doesn't think it's an attachment. Never mind. And I can actually send that mail straight to DEVONthink from here. So that's why I'm using that, and there it is. So it makes a PDF. It's all selectable and searchable in DEVONthink. So that's one of the reasons that I use MailPlane. I just love the fact I can get that quickly into DEVONthink. But every time you go into a mail, you've then got to go back. So this here, reading pane view, gives you the two options that are the most common options. One, to have a preview pane on the right hand side of the inbox, or two, have it at the bottom. And I tend to prefer it at the right because I'll be able to see more of the email. Now, it needs to reload because obviously it's a website. This is just a wrapper, so I'll say yes, reload it. It took a little bit of time last time, to be honest. I didn't do it through MailPlane though. So there we go, it's worked. So I can then click on there, and there is my mail. And when I click on the other one, there's the other one. And I can just go between them. You can carry on using all of the shortcuts that you could use before. So I can quickly, it's probably half the time it would take me to go through my inbox.
After hours 68.
It was in after hours 68. There you go. Was it that long ago? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's get back into the settings. Those are the settings, that's it. They're the quick settings. They're the settings that they think that you will want access to most. But all of the other settings are now in the seal settings. So it has to load those in. And this is what it's always had. But in here, and there are that many settings, seriously. Honestly, you'd never find a thing. But if you know they're there, these are pretty handy. Under chat and meet, you finally have an option to turn them off. Ah, bliss. Never going to use chat, never going to use meet. Save the changes. And on the left-hand side, in the bar, when it's loaded, it's gone. So now I can really focus on that. In fact, if you're in MailPlane, you can take that a step further in that you can have your calendar Google Keep and Google Tasks open or closed in a sidebar. Don't know which calendar we'd be seeing, to be honest. The one belonging to this, by the look of it, because there's nothing on it. Remember, this is a secondary account purely for notifications. There's no way I'm only using less than half a gig, trust me. But I can see that. I can see Google Keep. I can see the tasks. It makes it much closer to Outlook. So as you can see, yeah, either I'm at inbox 0 on everything, or I'm just not using it. But I think that's a huge improvement. And to think they've barely mentioned it, and you know, you'd have to be going into the settings to even stumble across it. But I think they're incredibly, incredibly useful. Right, now I can close that, which will help with the fact everything's getting over warm. Right, let's go back into there. Right, next thing. You know we love QR codes. Google Chrome loves QR codes. Just not told anybody. So that's the kind of QR code that we use. We use an app for that. We've demonstrated that as well. I think, in fact, we might have mentioned it twice. It's called QR... Oh, what is it called, Mike? QR... It'll come to me. QR Creator? Something like that?
We create QR Creator.
Yeah. It's a separate app purchased on the App Store. But as long as you're not overly concerned about what it actually looks like, in terms of it will look like a QR code, but there's a little automation thing on it, you can now do it totally for free inside Google Chrome. Obviously, there's a trick to it, isn't there always? Right, somewhere here I have Google Chrome. I do believe that's it. Running the live stream in it right now. But what I need to do, I will show you the long-winded way of doing it. So in Google Chrome, if you go to Chrome, // and then flags, magic secret word. If you were with us the other day, it's like the trolley handle. Only corn won't do us any good, will it? Chrome, flags. And you see that the icon is like a test tubey thing. So it's very much experimental. These may be here today and gone tomorrow, seriously. But you go into flags. And it says experimental features ahead. By enabling the features, you could lose browser data, etc. But for this one, I don't really think so. We've looked at this before. We looked at it in terms of enabling reader mode. That was the one that we played with. And we also did the extensions toolbar. And we looked at tab groups. So that's why these three are at the top. And I've disabled the extension toolbar thing, but enabled the other two. When you look down the rest, many of them are set to default. So what I'm looking for is to search the flags and find the one all about QR codes. So if I type in QR code, it actually takes me to this bit. Enable sharing page via QR code. So as it says there, what will happen is, at the moment, if I was on a page and I wanted to share it. So let's do that before we start. That's probably a good place, and get a blog post. Now what Mike's posted in there while I'm finding a blog post here, that'll do, is a direct link to it. So there's a hashtag at the end, and then it says sharing QR code generator. That will take you straight there, you won't have to search for it. But at the moment, if I were to right click on here, you can see I've got all my extensions and stuff, but I don't have a way. None of these say share via a QR code. None of them. So back in this end here. The default at the moment is for it to be turned off inside the version of Chrome that's the main version of Chrome. But if you want early access to the features, but you're concerned about enabling them in your browser, you could download something called Google Chrome Canary. And that is basically the betas. So I found this option in Canary and thought, hang on, is it in the main Chrome? And yes, it is, but you manually have to enable it. And then, of course, you need to relaunch Chrome. So then I need to come out of there, which means I'm now blind in the enabled manually. All four of them are at the top. And that's the last one that I did manually there. And now it's enabled. Right, so if we now go into here. Oh, it's all right, it's loaded it in. Okay, so now in here, if I right click, we have create QR code for this page, and we can share it from here. So I'll click on that, and this opens up here. Why am I not getting a preview, Mike, when I got a preview in rehearsals? Typical. Right, in there I actually had the QR code. Don't know why I'm not getting it at the moment, but I'll do a download anyway. And we'll open that and we'll see if there is actually a QR code. No, there's not. Crying out loud. I'll try it again. Maybe you didn't like my website. Maybe that's its problem. Maybe it should be a Google page. Oh, come on. Dare I go to the BBC News page?
Yeah.
You reckon? Last time I did that, Michael Jackson had died in the middle of my demo. I'll go to MacBites.
Yeah, it's just about COVID. Nothing new.
They've not locked us down even more or something like that then. Right, let's do a show. Let's see if it likes that any better. This totally worked in rehearsal. Which is typical. There we go, about the COVID cat one. Right. And fingers crossed. Just doesn't like my blog. Fabulous. Right, so the difference between that and the kind of one that we're generating is it's like mainly dots, and it does have this like automated thing in the middle. But there again, it's totally free. Totally free. So you download that. There it is there. Open that up, and if I leave that on the screen and you try it, I'll make it big. Shall I try it as well? Are you going to try it, Mike? Let's have a look. Oh. Right, camera. Where's it gone? Okay, let's see what it makes of it.
I'm not trying it because my phone's next door.
Yay, it works! Does it go to the
I like the
actual page
dinosaur.
then? He reminds me of Posh Paws.
Yeah.
If you're around in the 70s in the UK, it was a TV
It
programme.
wasn't the 70s, was it?
It was. It was, Mike.
Was it?
Well, if it wasn't, you'd have been watching when you were 15.
No.
It was definitely the late 70s, Mike. It's going there for me. Let me know in the chat if it's going there for you. It works! Neil says it works. So that's a way of doing it totally free. I'm wondering, but don't quote me because I literally have not had time to do this, but this little dinosaur fella in the middle, I'm wondering if you could actually blank that out if you didn't want it, or put your own logo over it. Because I don't think he's got anything to do with the link, but I haven't had chance for that. Good evening, Paul. Excellent. So that's just a free way to do it. It's not that fiddly, but you just need to reboot Chrome, basically. So in the experiments, 2 ways to do it. Chrome://flags and then search the flags for QR code. Or use the link that Mike put in earlier, which will take you directly to the option, and then make sure you enable it. As I say, they do put things in here and then unceremoniously take them away. Case in point, they added the ability about a year ago to stop the autoplay of videos on YouTube. And now they've taken it away. So I'm hunting high and low in the experiments. It's gone. They don't do that anymore. What they have done in there is if you have a video playing, they do give you like a music thing over here, and you can control it with that. If people have never seen that, I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, let me get a YouTube video up. Better be one of mine before I get a copyright claim. What shall I go to? I'll go to one of mine from eons ago. We don't want a long video, do we? What have we got that's short? Oh, the Catalina boot disc. Now I've added it to a queue. No, I didn't want to add it to a queue. Right, I actually wanted to play it. So if I go over here and put that in there, there's the video, eventually. Play. So if you imagine that I have this on another screen out of the way and I'm working in here, I can click on that button and it gives you a beautiful preview. You can choose to play it down the bottom. You can play it, you can pause it, and if you've got more than one video you've started watching, you'll see multiple ones of these coming down here. 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is actually quite nice that, but I still would like the ability not to autoplay a video. But that could just be me. Right, let's close down all of these because we do not want to giddy YouTube tonight with Chrome and anything else we've got working. Right, so that was what you needed to get straight to it. But if you can't remember all of that and you missed Mike pasting it in, he'll paste it in again. But just remember Chrome://flags and then do a search for it. And then that will bring you, if you use the search method, that will show you that, and then just enable it and reboot. How simple is that? We're liking that. I'm liking that. I do like it when I find things that, you know, they've not really made a massive fuss about that's useful, particularly if you're on another machine. That may work. Let me think about it. Yeah, it would definitely work on machines that I don't have the app on. In terms of, let's come out of that for a minute. What was the app if you wanted the app? QR Factory, that's the one. Obviously that does a lot more, but it's not cheap. So the other option is completely free. Right, presentation tricks and tips. Now, I'll probably be doing a few more of these because we've got something coming up on MacBites. 129, Jonathan. No ETA, but 129. So if there's anything that you've always wondered or wanted help with, let me know, because now's the time. I'm putting things together about presentations. And I'm being completely, or at least PowerPoint and Keynote, platform agnostic. Whatever I show you will work on Windows and will work on Mac, apart from the bits that are Keynote, which will only work on a Mac. But I didn't want anybody left out. So, first thing we're taking a look at is Morph versus Magic Move. Again, if you were a child of the 70s in the UK, Morph! Did you watch Morph?
Yes.
Oh, Morph.
Tony Hart.
Tony Hart and Morph. Tony Hart was a TV presenter who did lots of design stuff. It was amazing stuff. And Morph was his sidekick, made out of plasticine. And as the name implies, he used to morph into other things with stop motion video.
I preferred Gordon the Gopher, though.
Really? Ed the Duck. I like Ed the Duck. But that was Morph. So Morph's big on YouTube, you know. There's loads of clips of him. It was brilliant. But Morph is the version of Magic Move that's in PowerPoint. So it's a transition in PowerPoint. It's been there a while, about 4 years
So
now.
Neil remembers it.
3.5, 4 years it's been in PowerPoint. If you were a child in the 70s, you couldn't not know Morph, could you?
True.
Absolutely not. He was great. It is, as the name implies, it takes a shape or content on one slide and then the same content on another slide that looks different, and it morphs the first one into the second one, just as the name implies. Magic Move in Keynote does exactly the same thing. Now, having said that, I've had some weird results with Morph. But that could be me, on account of the fact that I live and breathe Keynote. Except when it went mental 2 weeks ago, and I seriously thought PowerPoint could be the way. There are things in PowerPoint that aren't in Keynote, and vice versa, but these two are fairly equal. So I've got two demonstrations, slightly different, that will show you. Similar enough, you'll see that they can do the same thing, but different enough that it will show you different techniques. That's how I like to work. Okay, so how was I starting? Right, I'm going to do a panorama. I can probably show you the finished product so you know where we're heading. Let's have a look. I think it was that one. But I've got multiple demos in here, so don't look at the other ones because you're not seeing those today. In fact, I can just present it from here. Okay, right. So it's fairly straightforward, but it's one of those things that looks simple until you try and do it. It started from the beginning. We're not looking at that. We're looking at this one. Okay. It looks relatively straightforward until you try and do it. Now, what this is an app that I'm doing a review of for MacBites. 129, Jonathan. How many times can I say 129? Can we turn it into a drinking game? Mike's shopping. 10 o'clock cut-off, is it, Mike?
11:45.
Oh, so I can actually think of extras until then.
Yes,
You did promise pizza.
I did.
But the trouble is, if you go for a gluten-free pizza base, then you've got to have lots of cheese and lots of tomato thingy that you put on it, and all the other stuff. I nearly said semolina, but that's not what I mean, is it?
I don't know.
What's that meat called? Not salmonella. You know the one I mean.
Should we just stay with pasta?
We'll stick with pasta, it'll be easy. Dino pasta. Right. So as I say, it looks simple, but these images came from the App Store. And in the App Store, you can take a screenshot in the App Store, but you can't take a screenshot of all of it. And I needed all of it to do this. So I needed basically to take multiple screenshots, and the first step of making that happen was to take the screenshots and then merge them together. So let's come out of there. That's what we're aiming for. So the first thing that I did was take the screenshots, so I can show you where they came from. But there's probably no point in taking them again, is there? Right, App Store, and it's an app called Jew that I will be looking at in MacBites, which is this one here. And actually, I don't think I took it from the App Store. I think I took it from the other App Store, so it would have been in a browser. It's that app, but it's not the desktop version of that app, is it? So let's try that. Jew iOS App Store. Before you think I'm lying. I made them myself. I didn't. I took them off here. Let's have a look. App Store. Come on. You're joking me. I'm actually having to go to the app itself and then say Mac App Store. No, I don't want the Mac App Store. The other one. The iOS App Store. Crying out loud. God, everything is so slow today. Shall we take a bet on how many times I'm going to have to click? I think we're nearly there. Fabulous. Right. So that was what I was looking at. But obviously there were more that I could scroll to. Let's pin it down. So I scrolled through all of them and I took the screenshots. Right. What they look like, I will show you. They are in here. I put Mac App Store, but it wasn't. Right, so that was my first screenshot. That was my second. And that was my third. Things to think about at this stage. If you're going to try and do this, when you take the screenshots, you need to give yourself a big overlap. It will make your life easy. So I've got 4 windows there. Look at the one on the right. It says lightning fast to set due dates. When I go on to the next one, I have another copy of that on the left hand side. The one on the right has no text in it. Oh my, we have a visitor. Chickens about. I think Madam's got a second wind now. It's a smidging cooler. We're down to 18 degrees now. So that one has like 2 phones coming in from the right and a bit on the left. When I move on to the next image, you can see I've got the same image. So I've got a lovely huge overlap on those, which will help. But there's also a trick in it. So I do this in Affinity Designer. It wouldn't actually matter if you did it in Affinity Photo or Photoshop or anything else, to be honest. Anything that you could edit images in, you could probably do this. I think it would be better if you had the blend mode options in there. It would be easier. Right, so I've got my 3 images. I'm just going to drag and drop them in there. The reason I do it in Affinity Designer is I pretty much live in Affinity Designer way more than Publisher or Photo, to be honest. So I'm fast with it. So it's opened up as 3 separate images for a start. And it's opened up number 1 in the middle. In fact, it's opened them backwards, hasn't it? So I'll put them in the right order. Right, I'll work from the first one here. So it has a background, which is the pixels. And I need to turn this into a repository for all 3 images. So first thing I'm going to do is, take the lock off and start making some changes with this. Because I definitely don't need the screenshot bit at the top. So I actually need that much smaller. So I'll take that down so we're there. And I'll take that bottom one up so we lose that darkish line at the bottom. You don't really need to be that precise with this. That's probably good enough. Right, so that's a vector crop. I've just cropped that element. I have got that thing there, so I want to try and get rid of that. Shall I worry about that now? I'll worry about it later. Right, so the first thing I need to do is create an artboard. Now I can make an artboard for the document, but if I do, it's going to include this area here, which is now transparent. It's got no information in it. So from the drop down, I'm going to choose selection and then insert artboard. So it's cropped it neatly to what I've got down there. Now I'm going to see what's going on there. It looks like pixels of some description, doesn't it? Which I could fiddle with, but I'm going to take the easy option and just cover it up and make it white. Because the whole lot's going to be grouped together and exported anyway, so it doesn't make a difference. Right, so that's the first part of it. But the artboard that we have here, artboard 1, is too small. We are definitely going to need more coming out this side because we need to make a panorama. So I'll just make that as big as I think it needs to be, possibly even bigger. Because I can always change my mind about that later. Now, then I need piece 2. So I'll unlock that, make sure I've grabbed hold of it, copy that, and paste it into document 1. So I've now got 2 bits. And the beautiful thing about lining this up is I don't have to guess. If I had to guess, would I be dragging it this way? Well, that won't particularly work because this white bit that I've got there is far too wide, and even if I thought that's about right, the white bit's too thick. So here's the trick. First of all, make sure that you've got less white on the left hand edge of that than you have gap there. That's the first thing. You don't particularly at this stage need to be worrying about how much excess you've got in terms of screenshot and a gap at the bottom, because this has to fit. So this bit here has to fit over that bit there precisely. And what's the best way to do that? I'm putting this over to you. Deborah thought Lola's chicken was a bird outside the window. No, that's Lola's chicken, which is still going strong. Right, give me an idea. What would you do if you needed to line that up? There's a couple of techniques. One I think is easier than the others, but there's 2 that are particularly viable. What would you guys do? What do you do now? Or have you never had the need? Can Mike remember? No, not got a clue. No. The one I've seen most, was Jonathan. Words right out of my mouth. One option is you could change the opacity and then you can just about see it and you can kind of take it over and that gives you like a kind of double vision thing. So keep going, now up a bit, up a bit. That's not bad, but it's still a bit fuzzy-ish. Not quite. It's not bad, but it's not 100%. Drag out a vertical line. Yes, you could do. You could drag out a vertical line that lined up with the edge of this one, but there's a far easier way. Much easier way. And you don't have to fiddle with the opacity either. So let's assume, in fact, let's put that back because I don't think that's perfect. It looks a bit hazy to me. Where were we? We're about that's definitely hazy. There. I think we had it about there. That's hazy. Right, but what we can do, let's take it back to 100% opacity. So we can see the whole thing. Because what we've got here, we've got an artboard, which I'm going to call panorama. so we know what we're talking about. And then we've got this bit that's part 1, and we have this bit that's part 2. That rectangle was just a fix, if you remember, cover something up. Deborah's saying guides. You could potentially use a guide, but you'd have to take time to set the guides up to match it. And the way that I'm going to show you is so much easier because you don't really have any work to do at all. This is part 2. So this is the bit we're trying to line up. If we change the blend mode, you see what happens. Where those two interact, you're getting different colours. Right, but one of the blend modes will show you the difference between the two images. So obviously if I do that, they're all different and it looks hideous and you're like, that's not going to help. But actually it is. If you put this over there, where it's black, there is no difference. Where there's a colour, there's a difference. So if I start moving this way, you'll reach a point where some of the text will go black, telling you there's no difference. And that's right. If you look at the letter T, if I lined them up vertically, where they match, which would be this bar here, it's black. And where there is a difference, it's white. So if I move down, you can see a lot more is black rather than white now. So I'm going to zoom out so you can see it, because when we get this spot on perfect, the whole thing should be black. Like that. And then it's pixel perfect. And that took seconds. Absolutely took seconds. At that point, it's in the right place. And then all you need to do is change it back from difference to normal. So not all blend modes are something that you apply and you've made it look a certain way and you keep it. Some are administrative in terms of you turn them on, you move the thing, then you turn them off again. Sometimes they're just administrative tools. Now, I'm also noticing we've got that blue bit up there. I'm going to fix that shortly. But what we need to do next is go and get the final piece, which was piece 3, and rinse and repeat. Do exactly the same thing. So no text on that one, but I'm going to copy it and paste it into here. We don't even have to be anywhere near the ballpark when we turn on difference. Once we start moving it over here, you start to see where it matches and where it doesn't match. And obviously that doesn't match. But as we get it closer, it will, and the whole thing should go black. You don't even have to look at it thinking like, you know, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? No, you just need to move it fractionally. I think are we nearly there? Am I going up or am I going down? Can't quite tell. This one's a bit trickier, isn't it? That one seems about right there. Oh, so close. Down, up, there we go. So it is literally just a case of moving with the arrow keys until it goes black. You don't have to be like, am I nearly there? Just keep moving it. Obviously, eyeball it. If I were to move, so let's zoom in a bit. I'll get this bit down here. If I'm here and I'm thinking, oh, do I go down? No, because that's going worse. So you may choose to zoom into something like that where you can actually see it. It's getting closer together. And then finally it just disappears and goes to black. You're hopeless at using layers. Do you mean blend modes on layers or just the layers? And do you mean moving them or doing other things with them? So again, I've got the background for that. That's actually part 3. And take that back to normal. And now, is everything in the right place? Yes and no. It is, but that bit there is too wide. So I need to use the crop to take that in so it's very close to there. And the benefit of that now is that the gap between each of these, so that little gap there, is exactly the same as this gap and this gap. Whereas if I'd have eyeballed it or cut it off and tried to move it up, it would be fractionally off. You can't help it. But as that stands, that is perfect. So now we need to tidy up. For what I'm doing, it doesn't really matter if it's got a little bit extra white over here. Right, so Deborah says, blend modes, good at layers, not good at knowing how to use blend modes. That's actually quite handy, Deborah, isn't it? Because there's, wasn't that one of our options,
Yeah,
blend modes?
just thinking that.
Yes, that was one of our options. It didn't win, but it's still going to happen. Right, so I'm going to go back to the artboard tool, and in the artboard I need to bring the artboard back in size so it fits there neatly, and that looks about right. Now, I didn't do this when I did this first time. I'm thinking I'm going to have to do it now because I think I must have cropped more off at the top. That's still an option, to be honest. So instead of fixing these blue bits, one thing I could do is go to there and again take the artboard down. Where's the handle on the artboard? Where the artboard? So there's less white space at the top. It really doesn't matter for the demo, to be honest. Which means I can lose my fix because I don't need it. There we go. So I've got a little bit more room on the left than the right, but it doesn't make a difference. I can put a little bit more in if I want to. Go back to the artboard, make it a little bit bigger on there. But then I'd have to fill it with something. So I'm just going to take it up to the very edge of that. And that is all there is to it. So it's a matter of really keeping the artboard. That's not quite enough. You take that in a little bit more. Why are you not moving? There we go. Just don't want that transparent bit, want the white background. Right, that's it. So I started off with one image. I made an artboard. Then I made the artboard bigger, and then I added the other two in and aligned them up with the difference blend mode, which is a good blend mode. Right, at that point I should probably save it. So I'll do a save as. Think about it. Don't take all day. Can we go over here? I actually want to put that over here. No, you're not thinking about that today, are you? There we go, you can do it. Right, so I'm going to put it in the same folder as the other ones, but this one is the Jew Panorama. Panorama. Then I need to export it, which is really simple. In the export persona, I already have an artboard. It's picked JPEG, high res, 1x, perfect. So I will just export that and I will put that in the same folder as the other one, this one here, which will probably change its mind at some point. Oh no, it's sticking with it, excellent. Right, we're going to go back into Affinity later, but for the moment we'll lose it. We don't need to save the other ones because we have the one that we need. Right, so we now have Panorama, and that is what it looks like. Perfect. We're going to be using that several times. Right, so I'm going to start with Morph in PowerPoint. So we'll go into PowerPoint. This is the Mac version of PowerPoint. Obviously everything you can do on here you can do in the Windows version. The same is not true the other way around. So the Windows version has features, many features that the Mac version doesn't. I'm just going to make this a blank slide. And then I'm going to drag the panorama onto it. Now, the panorama is bigger than that, so they brought it in and fitted it to the slide. But I'm going to make that the size of the slide. Let's drag it out like that. And then move it so it lines up there. Now, personally, I think I'd take it a little bit over. Right, that's the first slide. You then need to duplicate that. So duplicate the slide. And everything that was on the first slide is on the second slide. So as far as PowerPoint's concerned, this image is this image. They're one and the same, which is important for Morph to work. So on the second one, I need to put this where I want it to finish. And I can be quite rough moving this about because it was already aligned like that. So I want it about there. So I want that to be the starting point and that to be the finish point. And there is no magic to this, it's really simple. You go to slide 1 and you click on transitions, and the very first one is morph. It even gives you some instructions. Right, so I've put morph on it. Now I will play that, much against my better judgment because it's going to be so fast. Right, so it'll sit there and it'll wait, and then when I click to move on, it'll do that, which isn't brilliant, is it? In fact, that's shockingly bad. I've just realised what my mistake was, and this is because I am a Keynote user. So let me undo that. Right, I've got slide 1, I've got slide 2. You put the morph on the second slide, not the first one. I'll explain the logic of that later. Right, so put morph on there, and it gives you a preview. Now if I do a proper preview of that, like that, you can see that's way too fast. But over here, when you're on the second slide with the little star that tells you you've got a transition on it, you can configure all of that. So I reckon somewhere between 6 to 8, so we'll go for 7 seconds on that. And it will move on a mouse click. And let's see what that looks like. So there's the first slide. I press the button, and that's much better. So that's morph. It takes something and moves it in this case, but that isn't where morph finishes, and I can do many more demonstrations on morph if you would like me to do that. Just to give you one idea of what it can do, we had it move, but if I duplicated that slide again, which has nothing on it, so I'm moving it down here, so 1 and 2 are linked together, 3 not linked to anything yet. But if I duplicate that again, and I'm going to create a link between 3 and 4, but on 4, instead of moving it, right, what if I change the scale of it so the whole thing fitted on the slide? Like that. So put that at the top. So that image is still the same image as that, it's just that you can see all of it and it's smaller. You can go further than that if you want. So you could, it takes me a while to find stuff in here because I do not use it that often. Right, let's say on sale now. And you want that to appear. So let's make that a bit bigger and make the text bigger. Perfect. And we'll just center it. Now that is not on the first slide. I don't know what's going to happen there. I know what would happen with Keynote, but in here. But what we definitely want to see is the image getting smaller, and I would like the ability to have that fade in if something wasn't there. But either way, what I would then need to do is go to transitions again and again choose morph. There you go. It's 2 seconds, so we'll make it a little bit longer so you can see it happen. Then we'll go to slide 3 and to 2. I'll press to go on to 3 and then press to go on to 4. And it'll change the size, and then the on sale now will fade into it because that wasn't there on the other slide. So it thinks that's something new, I'll fade it in rather than it just suddenly appear. So morph can do amazing things. I am sure we will return to morph, but that's what I've done with that one on there. So I'm just going to save that. Yes, we will have it in there. That'll do. I think I've got 3 million called presentation 1, but never mind. Right, similar concept. So I'm not going to do the we're going to use the panorama again, but this time we're going to be in Keynote. So I need to go into Keynote and out of Keynote to make a new presentation in Keynote so I can do this, because obviously I've already got Keynote running. Right, there's Keynote. Let's take that full screen. So, actually we don't need Keynote at the moment. What I want to do with this one is similar, but with a twist on it. So we'll go into there in a minute. But what I have got is a file to show you, and this is totally free. It's an amazing quality file to be free. Mike's got the link. He probably just doesn't know that he has.
I do, it's on my clipboard.
Oh, marvellous. Marvellous, Mike. Right, so when you download this file, you'll get a Photoshop file. So I'm going to double click it, which will open it in Photoshop, so it's probably not the wisest thing I've ever done. But just to show you it works differently in concept that Jonathan has stumbled across. So that says delete me, that's just support me and rate it if you like it, so turn it off. Which is smart objects, and smart objects in Photoshop are amazing. They're one of the, it's probably the #1 reason you will find me in Photoshop. Other than that, I'll be in Affinity Photo. But I do this a lot. So what you've got in here is, it says your design here. And it says put your design here on the MacBook and the iPad Pro in landscape. You drill down into that, so forget that. You drill down into it, you can see it's your design here. And when you click it, it's blank, there's nothing there. But if you look at this, well, of course, there's nothing there, is there? But what if we did the Inception thing and I took a screenshot right now to put in there? Right, so I'll do a screenshot, which is going to be the whole of the thing. So let's get that to the top, including that. So I've just taken a screenshot. That's going to open up Snagit eventually when the machine catches up with itself. There we go. So I'm going to take that off there. There is the image. So if I go back to here and I, come on, drag and drop my screenshot in, and I will just stretch that up so it fits. The MacBook Pro is a different ratio. It's a 10, it's a 16:10, not 16:9. That's why I need to stretch it a bit. But I've done that. Press enter, save that. When I go back to my design, there it is. And that's what a smart object is. It enables you to kind of, for somebody to build a framework, and enables you to slot things into the framework that they've built. And the amazing thing with smart objects is these two are incredibly easy because they're straight on. But sometimes you've got smart objects that are kind of got page curl on them and are bent round corners. Amazing, amazing. But Affinity doesn't have them yet. So if you don't have Photoshop, what to do? What to do? So I'm going to take that away. Hang on, where are we? Smart objects. You're not going to let me do it. Well, I don't want to save it anyway, so don't save it. Right, what to do if you've only got, in inverted commas, Affinity? Well, point one, you can still open that PSD file. So all you need to do is say open it. In fact, I will actually show that happening. How I do it is double click to get Alfred up and then open with and photo or designer or whatever you want to do it with. In my case, I want that to open with Affinity Designer. And you will get full fidelity, but you will have to cheat slightly. We do like a cheat, don't we? I do. I like finding cheats. So we're back in Affinity Designer where we made the panorama before. Again, we're going to delete that because I've already given you the link. Now, it will come through. So it says your design here and it says it's a group and it says put your design here. One thing we could do is actually, well, let's try that, shall we? Let's just put it there. I'm not too sure that that would work, but hey, it's worth a go, isn't it? Right, let's drag that from Snagit. And it's saying put it there, so let's just drag it over here. I don't think that worked at all. This isn't the way we're going to do it, so it's not a calamity. It's opened up another image. So pretty much it did what it did before. So I'm going to copy that. Oh, it's struggling. And paste. Yeah, that didn't particularly work, did it? It's in this bit here that says put your design here. No, I'm going to do this a completely different way, because even if I could get that working, and I probably know enough that I could get it working, that's not going to help if you take it into PowerPoint or Keynote. And what I'm doing here, I'm going to show it you in Keynote, but it will work in PowerPoint exactly the same. So, better way round it. Let's actually have a look at what we've got. So before you start throwing your arms in the air with, oh, it doesn't support it, oh, and panicking, go into the MacBook and have a look at it. What's it got here? It's got the shadow underneath it. And if you're not sure, toggle it off. Yep, that's the shadow. And there's the case. Okay, now we've got the screen floating. That works. And then we've got the screen. But when I toggle the screen on and off, you don't really see much of a difference. But clearly, what I need to do, and I'll actually show it to you. I do have one that I did earlier, just so you know where we're heading, because otherwise you might get confused, thinking where on earth is she going with this. Where's Finder gone? That's what I'm looking for. Right, in here I have PowerPoint. No, I don't. Keynote. There we go. So this is what I'm aiming for at the end of it. You're contemplating opening sometime today? Ah, there we go. Right. So I'm bringing this on. Right, and then I'll play it for you. I've only got 4 slides, obviously. But you can see what I want is what we had in PowerPoint, but I want it on the screens of the devices. Oh yes, let's get tricky with it. Right, so let's play it. I did click that button. Twice. Right, so I'll just show you the first one. Exactly the same principle, but on the screen of the MacBook Pro. Want to get really clever on the screen of the iPad Pro. You may be wondering why really clever. If anyone can tell me what the biggest problem with trying to get that to do that is, there might be a prize in it. What would be the most difficult part of that? But that's where we're going anyway. So we're heading there, but we're not there yet, because at the moment all we've got is this black screen and no idea how we're going to do this. So I will tell you that we can't use a smart object because Keynote doesn't support them, PowerPoint doesn't support them. And even if Affinity Designer did, or we use Photoshop, it would only give you a static image. And what we want is a moving image. But we don't want the expense of After Effects or motion or anything tricky or expensive. We do not want tricky or expensive. So we're going to need to improvise here, but it's not difficult. I'm going to zoom into this. Right, I'm going to concentrate on the screen, and I'm going to open up that. And I've got, it's a screen, and what I'm really doing is saying to you, investigate the file and see what you've got, and then see how we could work with it. If this is going to work, I'm going to need to, in effect, have a hole there. Frames of the device don't move. No, Jonathan, it's you'll get the problem when I show it to you. But it's not really the frames of the device not moving that's the tricky part. So I would say the screen is a mask area. It's going to be in a minute. This is just the easiest way that I thought to do it. But I wouldn't say that was particularly the trickiest bit either. Right, so what I suggest you do is go in and look at what you've got. And this is saying put your design here, but that's not really what we want to do with this. We want this to not exist. So this screen part here, if that screen part, let's have a look at it. Now I did do this and I thought that's strange. But I went into the Apple thing and I thought, right, well, what if it was green? Only it didn't change to green. And it didn't change to green because it's pixel based and I would have to do all the jiggery pokery with the pixels. So let's forget that. What I then decided was, right, I'm going to make my own screen. So I'm just going to put my screen on it. There's my screen. And my screen is green. And I'm going to put my screen above their screen. And then I thought, that's not going to match, and how am I going to get that to match? So if I put that behind their screen, you can see, I can actually see it. And for this one, it's relatively straightforward. Just take that back, take it down until you can't see any green. And then it's not actually, theirs isn't straight, crying out loud. But I didn't do that. I thought, no, there's a subtle way to do it, which is to put it over their screen, but behind this specular. What on earth is specular? And when you look at it, it's a shape on there that if I toggle it off, it's a subtle difference, but it's obviously very pale. When you look at the opacity of this specular, it's only 7%. You take it up, it's black. So if I left that at sort of 50, it would give me an idea. So I'm now on mine. And what I did was I zoomed in here and started playing around to see where that specular was. And I made my green match up with that. Now you can see it's not quite square, but for this demo, it's not going to make that much difference. You might want to take it down a smidge. You can literally take it up pixel by pixel, so I reckon that's about there. Right, let's take that out. Now, do I need the specular? No, not at all, so we can turn that off. Right, so we're halfway there. Now, the reason that I did it in green is for what happens at the keynote end. But before we get there, I've got this second screen to do. So same principle, really. Now, in that case, I should be able to draw it, shouldn't I? And not on the MacBook, so my rectangle's at the top, but in the iPad Pro, if I go into the screen of it, there's the specular. If I pull that behind there, awesome! All I need to do is pull this back then. Apart from, we have a fly in the ointment. The iPad Pro now has round corners. That freaked me out, you know, when my iPad Pro 11-inch arrived. It's like, I don't like that. Now I'm used to it. So that's not going to work. So let's get rid of that. But we do have a rounded corner one, which, draw that out. Oh yes, that's going to be much better. All right. So we just need to get that in the right place, like that. So I would then zoom out like this, draw it out to the size that I need it to be. And that is going to impact the corners greatly, isn't it? So I'm going to take that up from 7% again so I can actually see it. Bring it in a bit. Bring the bottom up ever so fractionally. So might need to zoom in to make that perfect. Possibly one more. Let's zoom in even more. Perfect. Apart from the corners, obviously, that looks like a TV from the 50s. But there's things that you can do. So by zooming in and then double clicking it, why is that not working? Oh, hang on. I'm going to turn that off while I double click it. And that gives me the red handle there, which I'm hoping I can still get to with that turned on. And then as I pull it out, I'm trying to get it right to that corner. Like that. And that is pretty much perfect. Right. And then all I need to do is turn that off because I want it full green. Awesome. Now the reason that I'm doing it this way, there's other ways to do it, but I'm doing it this way just to show you a feature inside Keynote. And this way we know we're pixel perfect. So I've not used this smart object at all because it doesn't support them. What I've done is I've created two masked areas. I've used green. I could have used yellow, white, wouldn't make a difference. As long as it's high enough contrast with the edges. And the edges are black in both cases. But green's particularly handy if it feels like a green screen, and we totally understand that. So at that point, I'm going to save the file. It will prompt me, because at the moment it's a Photoshop file, so it will prompt me to save it as an Affinity Designer file, which is totally fine. I'm going to put it in the folder, not with the panorama. Let's put it in there. In fact, we'll just put it in the root of there. Are we going there at all? Crying out loud. All right. If you want, and source has an R in it, doesn't it? Obviously having spelling issues tonight. Right, so that's it saved as an Affinity Designer file. Next thing to do is go back into the export persona and export it. Now you can see at the moment this didn't have an artboard. I didn't create an artboard for it. Doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do with that is just export it. PNG's fine, doesn't matter. JPEG, PNG, doesn't make a difference. Let's try and get into that folder. Oh, excellent. I've already got a device mockup, so I'm going to put there what I call it. OTN, on the night, which means this one was the one that I created live in the demo. And I've now got the source. Or I will have when it's finished exporting. Imagine it's quite a big file, that. It's a big photo. And we're done with Affinity Designer. Oh no, I don't need that one. Right, no, we don't need that one either. Okay, so that's gone. What we now need is Keynote. And the one I need is the blank one, untitled. So no tricks up my sleeve, it's totally blank. And I need to go and get that file that I've just exported and bring it in. So, it is that one there. And it's going to be way too big, as you can see. But if you know your way around the shortcut keys, which I do because I do it all the time, I can zoom out and bring that into whatever size I want it to be, and then bring it back up. Now, I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. Right, so how much of the bottom do you want showing? How much do you want it at the top? You know, if you want to put some text on it, you might want it higher up. But we'll go for something like that, which is perfect. Now, one thing I've mentioned before, which is a fantastic tool, is the object list. And the object list is our friend with a job like this. So I'm going to turn that object list on. It's on View Object List, or you can use that button if you've got it on the toolbar. Now, next thing to do. No good adding the graphic at the moment because we're not going to see it, are we? But we'll put it in there anyway. And I'm going to have to put the R in source, or it'll drive me insane. Right, there we go. Source panorama. And we have the panorama. Right, so we'll drag that in as well. So what we really want is to have that scaled and moving behind there. Well, the scaling part's fine. We can do that from this end. Just take that down till it's fractionally bigger than it needs to be. And I would do that on here. Literally just a couple of pixels over, not even as much as that. That's enough. So that's right. But obviously not going to work too well over the top of it. But we could send it to the back. Now I know the shortcut keys for that, which is Command Shift and B, like that. If you don't know the shortcut keys, that's where this comes into play. So that was at the top, and if you want to take it behind, you can drag it. But there's our problem. We have green pixels staring at us. But we also have the Instant Alpha tool. So make sure you've selected the mockup, click on that, and bring it over to the green, and just pull it out. And then let go. And when you're done, you can see behind it. And you can see enough to see that's not even in the right place. Now it's in the right place. So far, so good. Right, this is where you're going to see what the problem is. So I need to see the chat. Right. At this point, you could just carry on with this, but obviously you want this one looking right over here. So it would be quite legitimate to think, right, well, I'll go back to that And I'll do exactly the same, which is just get rid of the green. Brilliant. And there is the first problem, which is that image that's at the back, you can see it on the iPad. That's not a problem, believe it or not. What we can do with that is, we already want this image on the iPad, don't we? So at the moment up here it's saying Panorama JPEG, which indeed it is. But we're going to say Panorama MacBook Pro, so we know which one's which, because we are about to duplicate it. Now we have a copy of it. And this one is going to be on the iPad. So we definitely don't want it up there. But we do want it sizing to the size of the iPad. So let's make that a bit bigger so we can do just that. So about there is the right place, but we need it about the right size. So again, we've got a little bit of scope to move that. How close is that? Not bad. Not bad at all. Okay. That's just about right. And I reckon about there is probably the right place for it. So, the question then becomes, where do you put it? Obviously, not on top of the device mock-up, because you've knocked a hole through that. So it's going to have to be behind it. Right. But if it's behind the MacBook Pro, that's not good, because that's the MacBook Pro one, and we can't see this one. So the order of your layers is incredibly important. Now it looks right. Jonathan's liking that. Right, so first things first. Let's make it work, and then we'll worry about making it spectacular. Right, very simple. You just duplicate it, which is exactly what you did in PowerPoint. And then you move the MacBook Pro image, this one here, where you want it to be. So I'm moving it 10 pixels at a time to the left. So I've clicked on the image and I don't have to touch the rest of it, just keep moving it 10 pixels, 10 pixels, 10 pixels, until it's about right. And then start moving it back. That's pretty perfect. So I want it to start there and finish there. And to do that, I need to put a magic move on it. And this is where it's ridiculous. They don't work the same. You saw me put it on slide 2 last time and then said, no, it should be on slide 1, which is nonsensical. In Keynote, the transition goes on the second slide. So you would go up here and you then have transitions and you choose the transition, magic move. Or am I right here? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Oh, this is so confusing now. No, in here, it goes on slide 1. It goes on slide 1. I'll get this right. I should leave PowerPoint alone. That's my trouble. No, you add it in there. Magic move. There we go. So in Keynote, it's slide 1. In PowerPoint, it's slide 2. Right. So it's on there. It's still too fast. The default duration seems to always be 2 seconds. So we'll take that up a bit. Make it 6 like we did on the last one. And that's all we need to do. That's it. So let's play it. Perfect. Now for trouble. What if you wanted this one, once that one's moved, you wanted this one to move? Not an issue. Not an issue at all, is it? Or is it? This is where it got complicated. Right, because I'm on the second slide. All I need to do is take that and move that where it needs to be. Oh dear. It's going to come over the other one. So you might think at that point, oh, it's dead simple. Right. All you need to do is put it behind. If I do that, then you're going to see the one on the MacBook Pro on the iPad, because these two images are on top of one another. No matter what you do with them, they are on top of one another. So, no, you can't do that with it. So I pondered for a while. I thought there's got to be a way here. It's not as tricky as you would actually think, but it does involve an extra slide. So, I don't want that there. What I want to do is send that back the way it was. So I'm going through the undo to send it right back to where it was. Which I think was there. Right. I thought, definitely need to weave some magic. Right, this slide here, I'm just pondering if I could do it with 3 slides. But I didn't. I'm just trying to remember which ones I moved. Which ones did I duplicate? Right, I'm going to duplicate that one. Right, because that's where we're at. So slide 3 is where we're at the end of the animation, the magic move between 1 and 2. We then at 3. At 3, we don't need the MacBook Pro to move at all. So, if we switched out that and put it underneath, then duplicated that, and then put that where it needs to be, so again, Shift key, it's going behind it. So I'm taking that all the way over there. That's probably about right. And then go back to that slide and put a magic move on that slide. So I've had to put an extra slide in, but it solved the problem. So we'll make that one 6. And I'll take it from there in terms of playing it. So we are on slide 3, and then that one moves, and we end up at the end of slide 4. So when it comes to running the whole thing, you have this extra slide, and that extra slide is there solely so you can flip the MacBook Pro to the back and the iPad to the front, or vice versa. No, the iPad to the back, the MacBook Pro to the front. So the iPad image slides across behind the MacBook Pro. So what that looks like, if you then do the whole presentation, is that slide 1, that's slide 2, with it's the transition between 1 and 2, but it's actually slide 2. That's slide 3, you don't see anything change. Then as you move on, slide 3 transitions into slide 4, and you don't have any things where they shouldn't be. So how do we like that? That's actually more simple than I made it when I was rehearsing it. I had 2 extra pieces in. I will put that. It looks like I'm putting it in the cloud, doesn't it? Oh no, it's sprung to life. So I'll get it over there. That's perfect. That was a mock-up. Mock-up on the note. There we go. Right, so let me know what you think of that. Now, I'm going to come out of that one. I've now got multiple ones of these, so let me close these. There's one thing that I thought was worth mentioning that you may or may not know about if you use PowerPoint as opposed to Keynote. But to do that, I need to find my other. Where's my other presentation? The one I've minimised. There it is. Right. So let's get that one going. Right, so that was Morph and Magic Move. This is another one, which is Duplicate. Now, something like that, I did that from scratch. You saw that slide earlier tonight when I was talking about Gmail and the settings changes. And it's a pain to do something so simple when you've got multiple shapes like that. So I'll show you how I did it in Keynote, and then I'll show you why I lust after PowerPoint, which means I'm going to have to come out of there, doesn't it? Right, so another new presentation. This might come in handy if you are creating a slide deck. If I was doing more than what I was doing in terms of that slide, which was this, so I'm going to copy that slide and paste it into here. If I turn on the object list, you can see just how many things you're juggling with. Each one of these was representing a male in that interface. Right, so how I did that, relatively straightforward in terms of creating it. I went and got one of these, stretched that out. Size actually didn't matter that much, but it was centered. Then I went back and got another one. So that one's grey. I will make that blue. It wasn't really that blue. Must have been that blue. It's that blue. Right, and I stretched that out. Something like that. So that was my male over there. And then I can duplicate that by holding down the control key. And then stretch it down over there to give me the full preview. So that was white and that was white. But if Apple are watching, which obviously they should be, everybody should watch, shouldn't they? Right, just square that up. Right, I would like to be able to do this not one at a time. I would like to do this the clever way, right? And it doesn't work. By the clever way, I mean you've got Command and C and Command and V, copy and paste. And that will give you that. Paste, 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 paste. They're not lined up, there's no gaps in them. So undo. There is a duplicate command. Why have a duplicate command that just does what copy and paste does? I don't know either. Ask Timmy. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. I've saved one keystroke. But it doesn't help me in terms of layout. So the best option I've got in here, not to go insane while I'm doing this, is actually to sort of put that where I want it. So that kind of gap. Hold the control key and the command option key, be right yet, and pull it down. You can even grab the lot of them and do it like that. And that was how I had to do it. It's a bit fiddly. Right? It's not bad, but it's not great. It's fiddly. Right? So I'll save that file. Again, mail. And then we can close it. Right. Let's go back into PowerPoint. This is how duplicate should work. Apple, if you're listening. This is just genius. If you've ever tried this in Affinity, you'll be pleased to know PowerPoint does exactly the same. So I'm just going to change that layout to blank. And I'll do exactly the same thing. So into the shapes, choose a shape, draw out the background of the email client, and put that in the middle. Go back to the shapes. Where have they disappeared to? Where did that shape thing go? Thank you. And choose the same thing again. This time, draw it like up there. It was a bit shorter, wasn't it? And that needs to have a white fill. Fill it with white and move it down there. Okay. I'll do the copy over here thing, narrow it down a bit and give us a preview. So the windows do at least look similar. There we go. But this is the one that's important in here. Right, Command and D. You get the same offset, only worse if you're with me. It moves it to the right, but it also moves it down. The Apple one doesn't move it down as much. But that's not where I want it. So I want it about there. So I've duplicated, and I've got the second one, and then I've moved it. And now, I'm going to duplicate again. And again, and again, and again. Apple, not rocket science. Why doesn't it work properly? There we go. So if I had a million of those to do, I'd be in PowerPoint doing them, and then I'd save it out and import them into Keynote. So that's a very tiny tip, but it can be incredibly useful, and that example is something that I actually sat and built today, the long way, because that was the only way to do it in Keynote. Oh, they're so far behind. Right, this one was mail in there, wasn't it? Right. I've got one more demo before I hand over to you, Mike. Okay, so let's come out of there. into... what time are we at? Into that. Open. There we go. Right, I always have a freebie, but I don't always demo the freebies. Depends what the freebies are as to whether I demo them or not. But this freebie, I will. It's a website which is similar. We had a website last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
No, not last week. The one where we did the knockout and then cheated. That one. Well, this is a website. It also has an API. So it could hook into certain applications if those applications support it. But I'm focusing on the website part of it. And it is tinypng.com. So let's head off. Why are you not moving? Excellent. Right, let's head off and actually have a look at it. I'll do it in Chrome on account of the fact I've not got Firefox open because it got all upset with its little self. So tinypng.com. Right. Up to 20 images at a time, and they're a maximum of 5 meg each. Because we're looking at the free version of this. You can pay, and there is a web version here where it says get the Web Interface Pro, drag and drop more than 20 files at a time and have more than 5 meg. I do believe that was ludicrously expensive for what I thought it was. I mean, it's not actually that bad, $25 a year. So if you use it a lot, not bad at all. I can see me using it for an odd image, to be honest, but not on a regular basis. But you never know. Good morning, Peter. So what I'm going to do with this is I've got some images, and I'm going to drag and drop some of them up there. Freebies, because they can't be over that. But I do have two. I've got one of Lola, which is 1.3 meg, and I've got a book one, which is 3 meg. So this is the one of Lola. Look at that face. That face says Mummy's got a treat and I want it. Oh yes, and she did. So that's 1.3 meg, and that one is 3 meg. So it's much bigger, that photo. The other one was optimised. Right, so I'm going to drag and drop those up there. In fact, I can probably drag the pair of them, can't I? I only did them one by one. Right, I'll drag and drop it. And it's compressing. It's having a rare old think about it. Now, bearing in mind, when it says compressing, it's actually got to upload 4.3 meg before it starts compressing. So the book one's done. That's quite surprising, isn't it? And it's decreased the size 75%. So it's now only 25% of the size that it was. So I'm going to download them all. It's put them in a zip, tinified. Is that a word? It is now. It is now. Right, so I'll click on there, which will open the zip file and my download folder, which I will then show you. There, the file sizes. So we've got Lola. No difference at all. No difference at all. And the book one, which was even more, no difference. Can't tell. So for something like presentations, brilliant. Also, if you need, sometimes you want to do something with an image and there's a limit on it. Maybe you can't send it to someone because there's a limit, or you can't, there's always something, it's like there's a limit on it. That's a good way to get that file size reduced before you start doing anything with it. Next week, I'll look at what you do when you've got hundreds of them, and that's obviously a free option, but the free option is only 20 at a time. So I will show you next week how to work magic in a presentation with images. How does it do it? Well, it's actually looking, there's an algorithm behind it that's looking at the images. So if we look at the one of Lola, with no compression, all this black bit, which is our lovely black carpet, you can see Lola's been down here with biscuit crumbs. Yes, Lola, that's biscuit crumbs. Right, all of that is treated exactly the same way as a complex part of the image. So let's say something like around Lola's, the Lola's whiskers, or the mouth part. There's different colours, there's shading, there's a lot more information. That bit of the image is, let's say that the size of that is X. The size of the bit that stores the black bit is also X, because it's not making a distinction between a complex part of the image and a simple part of the image. But if an algorithm looks at that image and says, well, look, there's a big black bit up there, don't need any detail, and there's a big black bit there, doesn't need any detail, and here doesn't need any detail. So if you can imagine just sectioning off that image into areas that do not need any detail because there's no detail there to start with. So literally all of these blocks do not need as much information storing about them. All they need stored is the fact of like make it a black pixel. So you can tear out of that, if you look at how much of that image, I mean, you've even got a bit up there, it's brown not black, but that bit there is very dark. It doesn't need much in the way of detail, does it? So it can simplify the areas of the image that don't impact how you view the image. So on the other image, if we just get rid of that, on this image, it would be a bigger job. But still, you've got that area down there, haven't you? Don't need any detail. It's grey. Even smaller parts of it here. Don't need too much information there or there. And obviously, you know, we're looking at the image and we're seeing like, oh, there's a whole load of information. And there is, but what the algorithm's doing is focusing in on the areas where there isn't as much information and stripping out the detail. You've even got white bits up here. So that's what it's doing. It just does it very, very quickly. Good evening, Tracy. How are you? So it's definitely worth a try, that. Sometimes you might have problems, like if you wanted to save your Keynote file to Dropbox, you can only save something of 171 meg or less. Don't get me going on that. That's a whole different story. Right, so let's get back in there. So that was TinyPNG from tinypng.com. The limit of 20 is in a batch, so you're not limited to 20, you just need to upload them manually. But to be honest, that's not bad, is it? I can't see people sending hundreds and hundreds of images. I mean, maybe 50, 60, which would be like 3 runs at it. If you were sending, you know, like when I sent them to Stuart, but I sent them full quality to Stuart. You know, if you're doing something like that, but a very good service. Right, next we've got Excel Boy, haven't we? Excel Boy. And it's array functions. Away you go, hey? Oh, come on.
Hooray!
You said, hooray!
Hooray!
Oh, I can't get the stuff. Right, let me share your screen. Hang on, I nearly shared mine again. A different one of mine. There you go. Where you go, Mike?
We're sharing mine.
They can see you, they can hear you. The stage is yours.
In that case, I will get on with my array functions.
Hooray!
Boo. Do we have boo functions?
No.
Just array functions.
Oh, there's Boolean.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Boolean.
Good thinking. Good thinking.
Do you know what I've just done on my iPad inadvertently?
No.
Is Jonathan still awake? He is.
Yes.
I've just inadvertently tapped on MacBites 129. Sorry, meant to tap on After Hours 87. Hey, at least it exists. It's the start.
True. Right, array functions. An array is a row of values, a column of values, or a combination of rows and rows and columns. And an array formula processes several values instead of just one. Now, traditional array functions, they have been around for years, and when you type in an array function, you type it in, and I'll do one in a second, but instead of pressing enter, you have to press Control, Shift and enter. Or at least that's what it was until Excel 2016. So let me give you an example. I have a requirement here where I need to calculate the total sales revenue. So I don't actually need the individual product revenue, I just want the bottom line total revenue. One way to do it is to go to D2 and enter in a normal formula. B2 multiplied by C2, enter that in, copy it down, and then add up the numbers. That's a straightforward formula, and it will give us £930. So that's one way to do it. But there is another way to do it, and I will clear those formulas, and then I'll just go to any random cell. So let's say I want to put the total into E2. So I'll put this equals sum, open brackets, B2 colon B6. I could of course type that or just do what I did, which is drag the mouse over it, multiplied by C2 to C6. So basically you're defining two ranges rather than multiplying individual cells and then getting the total. You're doing the lot in one go. Now at this point, if you were using an older version of Excel, 2016 or under, you would have to press Control, Shift and Enter. That still works in this version, and what it does is it puts a curly bracket at the beginning and the end, and that indicates it's an array formula. Do not type those curly brackets in yourself, because if you do, it's just going to treat it as text. You have to do Control, Shift and Enter. So what I'll do, when I click in the edit bar, I don't have to delete them because they only get seen when you've pressed Enter. So Control, Shift and Enter. So if I do Control, Shift and Enter again, there you go, they come back. Now if I delete that formula and just type it in again, equals sum, open brackets, B2 B6 multiplied by C2 C6, but this time press Enter, it works. So although this is still an array formula, in Office 365 or Excel 365, in other words, if you have a 365 subscription, all you need to do is press Enter. So that is making life easier. I think Microsoft are looking to phase out the Control Shift Enter because it's just too fiddly. So you can just press Enter. Now when I say Excel 365, a lot of people take that to mean the web version. It doesn't necessarily mean the web version. The proper name of that is Excel Online, but some people call it Excel 365. What it means is you're using the desktop version of Excel, but you're using it via a 365 subscription. The fact that we've got one formula instead of 6 means that our spreadsheet will be more efficient and take up less memory and less processing power. Let me give you another example. Column B and C lists the number of items sold in 2 different months, and I want to find the highest and the lowest sales change. So one option is to go to column D, D2, and just put in a straightforward formula, which is going to be C2 minus B2, and that's going to find the difference between those 2 months. Copy it down so we get a straightforward formula, and then go to G2 and put equals max, open brackets, D2 to D6, and equals min, open brackets, D2 to D6. So the min and the max of giving us the highest and lowest value within column D. So what I've done is to calculate those values in column G, which is ultimately what I'm after, I've had to create a kind of intermediate step. A lot of people call it a helper column. And using an array, I can then take away the need for that extra column. So let's get rid of those formulas, get rid of those formulas. And I'll go to G2 and I'll put equals max, open brackets, C2 through C6 minus B2, B6. Close brackets, and then either Control Shift and Enter or just plain Enter. And it works. It gives me the highest difference between those two ranges. So it's in effect, in the background, it's doing some calculations. It's doing them in memory, so it's more efficient. So 20 minus 10 is 10, 28 minus 30 is minus 2, 40 minus 20 is 20, which is the highest, 35 minus 30 is 5, 50 minus 40 is 10. To do a similar one for the lowest, use equals min. A lot of people think what it's doing is it's adding up B2 to B6 and then subtracting from that the total of C2 to C6. It's not doing that. If you'd used Control Shift and Enter, it would certainly not be doing that. And as I said, in the latest versions of Excel, then it's not doing that either. The older versions of Excel it would have done, but the newer versions, no, it's treating, when I press Enter, it's treating it as an array function. An array, as I said at the start, is simply a range of cells. So it's calculating on a row by row basis. Minus 20, is that right? That's not right, is it?
I've got a calculator I used to use at school. Would that help at all?
I've got it the wrong way round, that's why.
It's all right. I did that with slide 1 and 2 several times.
It's operator error, so let's do that again. C2C6 minus B2B6. That's better, minus 2. Yeah, it's like we said when you run a training course with a predefined demo. You know what the answer should be.
Yes. I used to do that with Access, and it was all about HR data. And you'd say to them, so how many, work out a query, you know, that when you used to have like exercises in class,
yeah,
you'd actually say to them, so make a query and tell me how many people are going to retire in the next year. You know, and you knew the answer was 13, and somebody would say 47, and you didn't even have to look, did you? Like, no, I think you need to try again.
Exactly. Now we can use array functions on 3 columns as well. So with this one, I'll put equals max, open brackets, C2C6 minus B2B6, comma, D2D6 minus C2C6. So I know it's late, so I'll just let you think about that one, because it's late for me as well, so the old brain's slowed down today. But again, what I'm doing is I'm saying C2 or column C minus column B and column D minus column C give me the highest value across that entire range, and we get 25. We could sit and work it out, but I'm going to trust Excel. Although that's a dangerous thing to do, isn't it? Trust Excel.
I remember the demo you used to do when, didn't you have a title, something like how Excel saved me £500?
Yeah.
And it didn't add up.
Yeah.
I used to love showing people that. They went white.
That was because of the BODMAS.
I thought it was a column thing.
No. There's another one. There's another one I do, which is calculating total time duration, because the way Excel works, unless you format the cell in a certain way, anything over 24 hours doesn't show properly.
That's right. That's another one.
Yeah. So
I had a solution to that. Use Google Sheets. Just saying.
So if you're a contractor, make sure you format the total cell. Otherwise, you'll be working very fewer hours than you actually did. Yes, I had to do that when I was a contractor, and I had to do my timesheets. Okay, next example. I want to calculate the tax due on each sale. So again, what I could do is I could just do a normal calculation and copy it down. But there's another way. So if I do equals B2 to B6 multiplied by C2 to C6, so that's going to give us the total price or the total value for that order, and multiply that by 10%. Press enter, or if you're on an older version, Control Shift and enter, and what that does is that takes that one formula and applies it all the way down here. What I've done in the previous examples is I've used an array formula to calculate a single value. So this one now is slightly different because it's used an array formula to calculate multiple values. And if you look in the formula bar, you'll notice that all the formulas apart from the top one are greyed out. So if you try and delete that cell, it won't let you, because it's treating that block as an array. It's treating all those cells as an array. And also, if you're in one of those cells, you can see there's a blue border around the block. That is called the spill range, and more about the spill range shortly. So the only way you can delete all of those formulas is to go to the top one and delete. The only way you can amend the formula, so let's say the tax rate changed, is to edit the first one and they all update. So again, that's going to save you a lot of time because it will save you putting in one formula and copying it down. You only have to amend one formula as well. Another example is transpose. You're probably familiar with paste transpose, where you can select a range of cells and copy, and then do a paste transpose, and that switches them round. So instead of having the products there and the regions there, we've now got it the other way around. But these aren't formulas. Yes, the totals are formulas, but the actual numbers aren't formulas. But there is a transpose function that you can use, and I'll show you the benefit of doing that. So I've got this data, and maybe this data has been imported from another system, but for reporting purposes I need the data to be flipped around. Now I could use paste transpose, but as I've just said, if any of this data then changes, I'd have to recopy and paste transpose. So I'm going to pick a cell and then put equals transpose A1 to F6. Close the brackets and enter, or Control Shift and enter. And what it does is it transposes it exactly as I just did with paste transpose.
Deborah's just put commenting.
Yeah, I've just seen that, and I was just thinking, what was it in relation to? And it's
anything to do with Excel, probably.
And it's
like me.
probably in relation to what I've just talked about, which is the paste transpose. Well, hopefully, Deborah, you are now familiar with it, having me demoed it. Basically, what it does is it allows you to take a block, copy it, and then instead of just pasting it, flip it around. So paste transpose, which can be, it's not one of those things you'd use in everyday life, but it certainly has its uses, instead of you having to retype the whole of that data because your boss says, can we have it with the product names across the top and the regions down the side. Okay. But yeah, this one is very, very similar, apart from the fact that, again, it is an array formula, because you can tell that. One, because when you click into one of those cells, we've got this border. And two, when you select one of the cells, the formula's grayed out apart from the first one. The idea of doing it as a formula instead of a paste is that if I changed one of the numbers, so if I changed product C for the north to 5,000, then product C for the north has updated there. So it's creating a dynamic link. Okay. All right. So again, if I want to delete the whole lot, if I select all of that data, I can delete it, but I can also delete it just by selecting the first cell. Okay. The next one is frequency. This takes me back to school when we did frequency tables, distribution. There's a way to do it in Excel. So basically you want to say how many classes had 5 or less, how many classes had between 6 and 10, how many classes had between 11 and 15, how many classes had between 16 and 20, and how many classes had more than 20. So the function to use here is the frequency function. So equals frequency. The data array is the cells that contain the numbers, the raw numbers, then a comma, and then the bin array. The bin array is the interval array, which in this case is the cells in column E. Close the bracket, enter, and again it is an array formula. You can tell because the visual. So it's telling us that there are 7 classes with 5 or less. There are 10 classes between 3 classes between 6 and 10, etc, etc. Now the 0 is because there are no classes with more than 20, but if I go and change one of these numbers, let's say the 16 to 22, that has changed from 10 to 9, and that has gone to a 1. Okay, so that is that's how to create a frequency distribution by using the frequency function and specifying the 2 ranges. The range that you want it to look at for the numbers and the range for the intervals. So what we've gone through there is what look like normal formulas, but because of the way they're structured, with the fact that they include ranges within the formula, they are known as array formulas. But there are new array formulas. So the ones I've gone through I would call old array formulas or original array formulas. What I'm going to go through now are the new array formulas, which are also known as dynamic array formulas. I think that's just a term Microsoft coined because it was new and it was sexy, as opposed to old array formulas. You know, in the same way we talk about power pivot and power query, and it's a marketing term, isn't it? It's just to get people excited. People like me. What?
Oh, okay.
I get excited at Power Query and Power Pivot and Power BI. Yeah. But yes, let's have a look at some of these new array functions, these dynamic array functions. So one of these functions is called the unique function. It was introduced in 2018 and it's only available to Excel 365 subscribers. Let's say I needed to get a unique list of our customers. So I have here my sales data, and you can see that some of our customers have placed more than one order, but I want to get a unique list. Traditionally, what I would have done is copied that list, pasted it somewhere, and then done data remove duplicates. And that leaves me with a unique list. And if I wanted to sort that list, I could then sort it. But that gives me a unique list of our customers. So, in other words, remove the repeats. If you don't want to do it that way, there is another way, and that is to create this rather complex looking formula and then copy it down. The third way is to use the unique function. So we put equals unique, that's the name of it, equals unique. And as I said, it's only available to 365 subscribers. Equals unique, the array is, in this case, that range there, comma. Do we want it to return unique columns or unique rows? Well, we want it to return unique rows. You might say, but we're looking at a column, but a column is made up of items on rows. So you do have to think about that a little bit. But yes, the items are on separate rows. So unique rows. And in this case, I won't do items that appear once. I'm going to do that in a separate demo. So I'll do items, return every distinct item, which is false again. And in fact, those are the defaults. So if you didn't want to put false and false, you could just leave it as unique C2 to C25. And that gives me a unique list. So no messing around with mega formulas, no messing around with copy, paste, remove duplicates. Just a simple equals unique and specify the range. If I actually get rid of those optional parameters, we get the same result. Again, we can tell that it's an array function because of the border and the fact that all the formulas are grayed out. Okay, let's have a look. Before I go on and look at another example, let's say I wanted to count the number of customers, not the number of customers, the number of different customers, and I hadn't used the unique function. Because if I'd used the unique function, all I'd have to do is use the count A function and say count A. Now, I hadn't mentioned that hash sign, but I might as well mention it now. If you want to refer to a range in a formula, like the count A formula, you could say count A K2 to K14. But you could also say K2 hash, which you can either get by highlighting the cells, or you could just type it in. If you do a cell reference and a hash within a normal formula, what it does is it applies the formula, which in this case is the count formula, to the entire range defined by the array function. As I said before, that range, which in this case is K2 to K14, which is also called the spill range, it's basically the range that's got the blue border around it, that can be represented by the starting cell with a hash sign. So we get 13, which is correct. But let's say that I didn't have the individual items listed, so I just want in a cell to get the number of different customers that we have. So what I will do here is I will put equals count A unique, where's my mouse, C2 to C24, 25 even. I need two closing brackets because I've got two opening ones, and it gives me 13. So the count A function just counts the number of cells in a range that contain text or numbers, basically anything, any cell that's not blank. But what I've done is, instead of having to have the unique range and then count that, I can just count by defining the unique range as a parameter within the count A function. I could also do it as equals count A open brackets. No, the one I've just shown you is the only way to do it, if you don't want to have the individual items listed. Okay, let me show you another one. So I want to get a list of the customers who only purchased from us once, because I then want to contact them and say, why have you only purchased from us once? Do you know we have lots of flavours of ice cream to buy? Because there are people who only buy from us once. Like there are people, I don't know many, who only come to After Hours once.
Never.
I'm sure there can't be many. We have lots of repeat customers, don't we?
We do.
Lots of happy, satisfied customers. Right, so I want to use the unique function again. I want to use the same range, the list of customers. I want to get it to return unique rows, but this time I want it to only return the items that appear once. So we use true as that third parameter. And you can now see that there is only 7 of them, not 13 of them. So that is a list of customers who have only appeared once in that list. Okay, so that's the unique function. Let's have a look at another function, which is the sort function. So I'm going to go to D2 and I'm going to put equals sort, which is another new function, equals sort, select A2 to A25, because that is the range I want to sort on, comma, the sort index. That is the column number. So if you've got a multi-column block, you would, let's say you wanted to sort by the second column. So if the column A was customer and column B was revenue, and we wanted to sort it by revenue, we'd specify a 2. So it's very much like the VLOOKUP from this point of view. It's a column index number. But because we've only got one column, we put a 1. I want to sort it in ascending order, so I can put a 1. And I want to sort by row, so it's a false. And what that does is it takes the list in column A, copies it to column D and sorts it. Yes, in many occasions, many instances, you'll just want to sort the list in column A, but just as many times you'll want to duplicate that list and have it sorted. I've done it loads of times where I want to leave the original list as it is, but create a copy of that list, have it sorted in a different order. And this now is the simplest way to do it, because otherwise you'd be copying, pasting and sorting. Again, it's an array, but you can tell that because of the border and the fact that the formula's greyed out. And let's say I change the cane to be the stick, because a cane's a type of stick, isn't it? So there we go, the stick. What it's done is it's moved the stick down there because now it's in the right position alphabetically, and we don't have the cane anymore. Let's say I change buttons. What could we have instead of buttons? Let's have zips. Now it's actually only changed one of them because it's listed each one, so it picked the first one because that's the first one I edited and moved it down to there. Okay, so that is that's one way that you can sort. You could combine sort and unique. So I'll put equals sort, open brackets. The array to be sorted is unique, open brackets, A2 to A25, comma, and then false because I want it to be rows, comma, false because I want it to return every unique item, close brackets. But we're still in the middle of the sort formula. So that bit there is the unique formula. We've still got bits we need to define for the sort formula. So comma, sort index 1 because there's only one column, sort order ascending, and sort by row. So basically that bit there is the array that we are sorting. And will we need 2 closing brackets? No, we've got them. So there we go. So what that does is it pulls out one instance of each item from column A, but it sorts it. And the last one to show you is filter. Now you may have used filtering before in Excel, where you define this range here as the input range, and then you create another copy of the headings somewhere else, and that will be the output range, everything below it, and then you define a third copy of the headings, and the row below it is the criteria range, and then you use data advanced filter and you define the list range, the criteria range, and the output range. The thing with that though is it's messy, it takes a while to set up, and it's not dynamic. So with this, the filter function, which is another array function, it's a lot simpler. So I've got my original data here, I've made a copy of the headings and put them here, and I've just typed the word flavour there just as a heading. You don't need that, you could just have a cell that contains the criteria, which I'll do. And then in H4 I'll put equals filter. The array to be filtered is that range there, A2, sorry I don't need to include the heading, so A2 to E25, comma, then the include is basically your criteria. So in this case I'm going to put B2 to B25, misselected there, B2 to B25, oops, I went a bit wrong there didn't I, so let's just edit that and type it in B2 to B25, it's easier than trying to highlight the cells, equals H1. So what I'm saying is filter that block A to E, but only show the records where B2 to B25, in other words the flavour, is equal to chocolate. Close the brackets and enter, and there you go. And if I change that to banana, it updates. If I change that to mint, it updates. So it's so much easier and so much more dynamic than doing it the old way with the data advanced filter. Okay, so that is it. I'm going to stop there, see if there's any questions at the end. I think we had one question which I answered as we went along. But I hope you have found that useful. Those are Excel's dynamic array functions. So, hooray!
Jonathan liked the unique function.
I liked the unique function. The unique function was good.
Really? No questions then? In that case,
back to you.
We'll head back over here. I just need to know if I'm in the right place in this presentation. Time will tell. Right, let me stop sharing your screen. Start sharing my screen. Isn't it good when everything works? Yeah, hold that thought. Right. You should be seeing my slides. We are heading into part 3 of DEVONthink. Effectively retrieving stored information. Right, quick recap. Part 1. Mike's got the links for these if you need to watch on catch up, and they are direct links just to the DEVONthink part. They are not a link to the entire 4-hour epic. But we looked at the different versions of DEVONthink and how they mapped together. That becomes quite important when you're talking about retrieving information, because certain versions of DEVONthink, so the standard DEVONthink rather than the Pro or Server, doesn't have as many options when it comes to retrieving information. We talked about it being one computer, one seat licensing. We looked at the interface. We imported content so many ways. We even created a magic Dropbox folder. We looked at duplicates and replicants. And then we went on to part 2. And in part 2, we had importing versus indexing, which Jonathan quite liked, didn't he? We also brought in content from Evernote directly. And it's configurable, so you don't have to bring everything in all at once. You don't have to bring everything in at all. You can be as precise as you like to the level of a notebook. We also looked at organising information. So when we brought it in from Evernote, it was automatically organised in the same notebook structure as it had been in Evernote. We looked at groups. So we grouped things together. Basically, a group is a folder. We looked at custom smart groups as well. Oh, we did. And we looked at tags. And then we looked at some alternatives for some features that DEVONthink had, which was organising by colour. But we said there may be better ways if you need more than 7 colours. So that's where we were at. We are now heading in to part 3. So let's come out of there. And here's DEVONthink. So this is the DEVONthink database we've been working with, our demo one. It threw a wobbly today with me. It threw a wobbly for 2 reasons. One of which we're going to address next week. Good night, William. My machine unceremoniously crashed twice this week when it got over hot. And DEVONthink was open at the time. So when I reran it, it started giving me messages about the fact that the database was already in use and stuff. That's what I'm going to be talking about next week, the kind of maintenance tasks and where things go wrong and how to fix it. The other reason it threw a wobbly, I'll talk about next week more, but some of the data that we brought in, we looked at sheets as well, Kim, you're quite right. Some of the data that we brought in, we indexed it, and it was demo data, and it doesn't live where it was when I was demoing it. So when I opened the database, it said, missing files. So it warns you if some of the files you've previously indexed are no longer available. So just a heads up on that. Now, first thing to show you. Earlier tonight, I was showing you the Gmail options. And I said how much better it was that you had a preview on the right-hand side. And that I used Mailplane because I could send it straight to DEVONthink. And that's what it looks like when it arrived at the DEVONthink end. So it's really nice and clean. And it is searchable. So we'll come back to finding that shortly. So I'm just wanting to show you that it does come in. It's incredibly nice and nicely formatted. The other bit I've got in here is 7 top tips for Scrivener, which I whipped off my website just so we've got more content to play with. So what we've actually got open when it comes to querying these databases is we've got the global inbox, which has 2 items in it. That's this one. These 2 that we have here, global inbox. The demo inbox doesn't have anything in it. And then we have the demo database, which has got all the things we've brought into it over the last few weeks, apart from the files that are missing. Now, the files that are missing, I think they are these. So if I tried to view these, this is what happens. So I had my after hours 86 demo files in my documents local, and that's not where they are now. So that's the kind of error message that you would see, but you can see, you can also see enough that you've got a preview so you can go find it and then hook them all up again. I will show you more of that next week. That's more of a maintenance task. Right, so we're ready to look at what we've got in here. I've put a few items in it, probably that you didn't know about, but that's good, because we need to do some searching, don't we? Now, before we even think about effectively retrieving stored information, we need to think about the structure of the database, folders, tags, and everything else. Could I have some water, please, Mike? Oh, I've got some here. Pour it out of that one. I daren't do it, or it'll be all over the keyboard. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to need to make a decision on how many databases you need. It may be that you just need one. Can you get the PDF off the Gmail as well? You should be able to, yes. I don't know why I couldn't. It could have been that it was a linked file and not embedded in the email, but there is an option that you can add that to it. So, yes, I should have been able to do that. Thank you. So, depending on your needs, you may decide one database is enough. The reason I'm talking about that in terms of effectively retrieving stored information is if you're going the multiple database route, then you need to be thinking about your entire structure, soup to nuts, from the beginning to the end. How are you going to manage multiple databases in terms of going mobile? And what kind of sync do you need? What kind of access do you need on the road? All of those things. So one global database is fabulous, but if you work with it extensively and then need to synchronize it with something else, it could take a little bit longer. So I have a few databases. I wouldn't consider that I've gone for this mass global database. I tend to keep like with like. I could probably organise it a little bit better, but obviously with my setup, I have to have it available for demonstrations as well, so I need to be able to close all of my databases down. So that's really up to you. And then within the databases, let's say you decide on a multiple one, but the principle's the same, whether they're multiple databases or not, you need to think about the folder structures that you've got, the groups that you have. So this is the entire database. These are groups within it. And you need to think about those and how they would best help you organise information. And the time that you'll be thinking about that is at the time you're setting up the database. But the problem with that is it will help you store information, but will it help you, will it be optimal when you come to retrieve your stored information? So, case in point, which I haven't actually got open, but let's say these Notion icons. They are all neatly organised. We've got Notion icons for apps and brands and calendars and checklists and generic icons. What does that mean? And MacBites and YouTube and video. It makes sense at the point that you file them away that you think, oh yes, I'll separate the apps from the brands and the calendars and everything. But I'd have to say, ask yourself the question, when you need to find one of these icons to use it, how do you intend to do that? And if the answer is, well, I'd go to Notion icons and I'd open up the folder and the group, and I would click in here until I found the one I wanted, then fine, that's great. But if what you would say to me is, well, I'd search for it, then maybe this isn't the optimal storage for searching for it. You'd also have to think about, what if you wanted to browse for it? Now you might think, what do you mean, browse? Well, let's say in the Notion group here, here's our folders, groups. Right, so we have a top level group and we have subgroups in there. But let's say I wanted to change the view and browse it. So we've seen what these can do over here. That's your list view, and that gives you a preview at the bottom, just like Mail, and that gives you a preview on the right, just like Mail. But in the view options, you also have an opportunity to view as cover flow or columns, if you particularly like columns in the Finder. And you have an ability to view as icons. So they would look like that. And if I link that up with not having a preview at all, that's a bit cool. Because we weren't seeing that over here, they all look the same. It's picked an icon to represent the group. But it's nice and visual, isn't it? So if what you wanted to do was browse all your icons, trying to find one that fits whatever purpose you're looking for, it might not be the best idea to have them all in folders, because that means you've got to manually navigate through all of these to find the one you're looking for. And you might think, oh, did I put it in as a brand? What did I put it in as? What was it? And in this one, what's the difference between that one and that one and that one? And the answer to that is they'll be different. I think they're different sizes. So there'll be a PDF one, there'll be a full quality one, and there'll be the 280 one. The 280 one being Notion size. Notion needs icons to be 280 pixels, which is why these are in here. I've got generic icons, I've got MacBites icons, so I can... Oh, I do hope BK wins, Neil. Good luck to him. It might not be the best for browsing, shall we say. And I can't give you hard and fast rules to that. It's going to depend on you. It's going to depend on your needs, your circumstances, and maybe in one group you do it one way and in another group you do it another. It does make sense to me here, I think. These have got, as you drill down, I've got my years and I've got... It kind of makes sense. But searching for icons, it won't make a difference. So it really does just depend on how you would like to interact with your content. So would you go drilling down into it manually, or would you prefer to search, or would you prefer DEVONthink to search for you? Would you like a smart group? That you need to think about up front, which was why I said if you try playing around from part 1 of the series, bear in mind by the time you get to part 3 and part 4 and even part 5, when we're cloud servicing, you might totally change how you would build it. So don't put that much effort into it until you get to the end, and then you've got the full view and you make that decision. So that's just something to think about even before you try and find anything with the search. Now, I've been building the Build With Me databases, and it's been an interesting exercise in terms of I'm taking an approach similar to Notion, where in Notion I have my tables and I never touch them. It's making more and more sense in DEVONthink to shove all the actual content into folders sort of well out of the way and don't interact with them. Interact with smart groups instead. So that's just something for you to think about. I'll show you a few things you can do here with this, and you'll see the output you get, and then it's up to you to make a decision what makes sense for you personally with your workflow preferences and what makes sense with the data that you're actually working with. So that's in terms of databases, folders and tags, all of which can be used to find things. So the first thing we could do to find something, going to the top level of the database there, is that you can look at the info that you have. And up in the tools, you have tools and some filters. And you have 3 categories of filters. You have info, tags and maps. And it's easy to remember. It's the control key with I, T and G. I'm thinking G for maps because it's probably Google Maps. Right, the other way to get to that information is down here. So if I were to click on that, that's the info. And what we're seeing in this window up here at the moment is anything, because this is set to any date. Right, so it's any date. Now, just before we start, if I were to put something in here like, we haven't actually got not one file there, so I'll open these up and I'll just click the bridge one, And in the properties over here, I will flag it. So a flagged bridge. And how about we flag all the affinity ones as well? So let's flag those. Now, I'm not a big fan of flagging them, as you know, because I don't think it needs to mean something. It needs to mean something to you, and don't have it meaning two things. Right, so fold that up. Right, so we're looking here at the dates and the marks. So if I were to click on there, it filters down this list to things that have been edited today, touched today, any date. And by any date, it means a date it was added, created, modified, opened, or a due date. So if I were to say, what about the date added? These two groups were added today. So one's got some scripts in, and the other one is actually blank at the moment. But they were added today. You could say the date it was created, obviously that's the same for these. Modified, what's been modified today. So it's just a filter. It's a way to filter down. You can also then say, well, what about if it's got any marks? Now, I was trying to clear that before and it wasn't clearing that well. So let's go back to there and filter for that. And it shows you the top level. And then it shows you the folder within it, the group within it. I'll be right yet. And there's the ones that you've just seen me flag. So the first way of effectively retrieving your stored information is by filtering it. How effective that would be for you, I don't know. It's going to depend on the data. If I did have flagged, meaning update this icon, then that would work for me. But another way of doing it would create a to be updated tag and applying a tag to it. It would have exactly the same effect. It's just going to be based on your preference for doing it. So it's basically filtering. That is filtering. So if I take that off, then everything comes back because I'm not limiting it to items that are flagged. Simple as that. So that is the info which is available from the little target at the bottom. You click on that and it gives you that query window, and then you start interacting with the query window and you are going to filter down the data list that you have here. Right, the second one you've got in there is tags. And it gives you a tag cloud. Now, if you've got a lot of tags, then this could head off the end, and that's why there's a search button, search option to search the tags. Now, as you can see, I've only got 4 tags, and there's a lot of things tagged MacBites that aren't tagged anything else. But if I click on the actual tag, then it will filter down and show me just things that are tagged MacBites, which was what we did last week. So it's up to you to decide, are you going to tag a lot or not? I must admit I don't. I don't tag a lot. That's going to either be based on, pretty much is my personal preference not to tag that much. But in certain projects I would. And I'll probably explain that more when I come onto one of the build with me's and I'm building it, and I will build something where tags would be completely relevant and really help. And I'll show it you with that. But it will filter for tags. And again, you turn that off down here. The last one is a map. And the map is where everything is created. So, you know, we talk about that main road. That's it. That's it there. And these are all my pins. Each of these, as I click on them, is actually an item. So it's saying that's your location. Let's try and click on that one. Evernote template collection. A note from the Evernote template collection. So you get an idea for it. It's going to be more useful if you're taking notes, maybe making recordings. Maybe there's video in there and they're geotagged. That's going to be much more useful. If you had photographs, it would be much more useful. Obviously, for the kind of stuff I do, and given the fact I've not moved out of the house since the 6th of March, they're pretty much a big cluster of tags around there, of little pins. So not much use at the moment, but I'm sure would be better with different data. So that's your first option, your filtering, and your 3 filter categories of info, tags, and maps. Right, your next option is a simple search, and I think we actually did one of these, which was just in this search at the top. Literally, just do a simple search. So if I was to type in MacBites, and it instantly gives me this search list results. Now, you have a score, so this is very different from other applications. You'll get stuff returned. Notion drives me insane when I'm trying to find something, because a lot of our stuff starts the same. I literally had to, I didn't even tell Mike this, I had to rename the shows table to MacBites shows so I could find it the other day.
Oh.
Because if I typed in shows, instead of showing me the table, shows, 5 letters, shows, plural, it showed me about 100 tables called show. And each one of those is embedded in one of the shows. And I'm like, what are you showing me that for? It's got an S on it. Show me that one. But in the end, I thought, you know what, just rename the table and be done. And that's what I had to do. Whereas in here, DEVONthink isn't just bringing you back things that match MacBites in the name. It's bringing back things and it's giving you an order. And how it's doing that, again, it's an algorithm. Everything's an algorithm. It is trying to work out what it thinks is the most relevant to your search. Now, obviously, if I were to put in like MacBites and something else, it would make much more sense. So if it was a MacBites After Hours that I wanted, then it's not going to come back with the cookery book. In fact, it's not going to come back with anything, which is rather alarming. Maybe the After Hours didn't have the word MacBites in. There we go. No, it didn't. So we've got a MacBites After Hours there, which is some demo icons, but it's thought of After Hours as being, this is probably the best result. And to be honest, it's right. It's totally right. It's probably working, it's giving a weight to the title for a start. And it's putting this one above this one, because this one says MacBites After Hours and that one says MacBites. Now, given that that does say MacBites After Hours, I would query why, if I put MacBites up there, it's coming in with nothing. And it could be that the hours is linked to the size of the icon with an underscore and it's getting confused. But in this circumstance, that is exactly what I would expect, because MacBites and After is in the file name there, whereas in this one, it's only part of it. The word MacBites is in here, whether it could read it or not. I'd imagine it could. This is actually a presentation, so I'm sure the word MacBites is in there somewhere. This is probably a graphic, but MacBites will be in there somewhere. It's picked this blog script, and you can see why it's picked it. So it's got the word MacBites in it twice, for a start. 7 top tips for Scrivener. That's a blog post, so it says watch this clip from MacBites After Hours where I demonstrate it. It's also finding the word after on its own, which isn't perfect. So you may want to put that in quotes. But you can see how it's doing a very simple search. But even that simple search has got lots and lots of things to think about. A simple search is case sensitive. So I wonder what it would come up with in terms of this one at the top if I were to put that in lowercase. I think it would probably still come up with the same thing, but we'll find out. There we go. In that case, it has. But if there was something in there in lowercase with the words MacBites and After in it, that would be higher up the list of results because of that. Oh, Kim, the more I learn of DEVONthink, the more I like it. It is amazing. It really is amazing. Hopefully by week 5. And then when we go into the build with me's, oh, that'll be fun. So a simple search is fine as far as it goes, but looking at it, you can do more even with the basic simple search. You have the drop down where you've got options. So do you want it live searching while you're typing? Do you want partial matches while you're typing? So these are all your options. But you've also got in here where it's searching. So at the moment, it's searching in all databases. Now, the MacBites After Hours stuff, I probably want from my demo database, in which case I just click on demo, and I've now got one less item in there. So it's taken away one item that must be in the global inbox. If I go to inboxes, it will give me the one item that's in there. And if you go to all, it will give you all of them. So you can work on the scope of the query in terms of databases with this database bar up here. But it gets even better than that, because that's a simple search. You've also got in here other things that you can search for. In fact, we'll look at those later. We'll go into the advanced stuff. You've got this advanced option. And this allows you to be more specific with it. So at this point, it's looking for matches of MacBites after, and then it's put a star on it, meaning, you know, anything there. But you could then add that in, and you could say where, and you've got all of this. So if there was some metadata in there that you're particularly looking for, or you wanted to limit it in some kind of way. In fact, we wouldn't need the content for that. I'm going to do another one. Let's see if we can bring that up. What on earth is that called? Trying to think of the best way of actually showcasing that. I know exactly what I want to do, but it's how to get it to do it and not bring back other stuff. What have we got in here? February. Oh, that would be very interesting, that. Right, we could put in there where there's something inside the content that matches. So this one's coming up, and let's say we want it to match the word February. Now it only brings back that one, because although there are many, many things with MacBites after, this one is the only one that has the word February in it. So this is a keynote presentation. That shows you it's actually drilled down into the content of it and is returning information to you based on that. So I'm looking for MacBites after anywhere, but the content of whatever you return from this first pass must have the word February in it. And that limits you then to just one result. So depending on how much you know about the information you're trying to retrieve, you can be incredibly precise. And the beauty of these things when you've created them, so with this one, instead of the content matching February, you might want the content to match 2019, which does bring a couple more back because that's when these were published, which is good. What we could do with that, if we just wanted it for maybe presentations in MacBites After Hours from 2019, you may have to add something else to it. In here, let's have a look. What could we put in there? Oh, Tracy's heading off to bed. You have an early, well, relatively early night, and come with it. Come to it with wide awake eyes tomorrow, Tracy. Love to everyone. Right, you could limit this in any kind of way. What I'd be thinking of limiting it in terms of is how about where the extension is and a keynote presentation. That's how precise you can be. You've got all of those options to be incredibly precise. So that query should return to me any keynote presentation with the words MacBites after anywhere, so not just in the name, not just in the content, but anywhere, in any kind of meta or tags or anywhere, with 2019 in it. And the more I look at this, Kim, the more I'm thinking, need to get those presentations out of our iCloud and get them into here, because I can actually interrogate, like, you know, when did I do X? And this would give me a much faster result than trying to search through iCloud while it has a think about it. So I'm thinking of doing that for a start, creating an archive. That would be very useful. Now, once you've gone to all of that trouble, the beauty of it is you can then save that at the top. So there is a save option, because this could be sort of 12 levels deep. So if we hit the save, you've got save a search, and it actually puts in right, the syntax of it, which is MacBites after with a star anywhere, where the text contains 2019 and the extension is key, meaning PowerPoint. That's the default for the name of it. We'll leave it like that, shall we? Okay. Right, we've got a saved query now. That was starting with a basic query, going on to an advanced query. But as you start using this, right, if we forget that query entirely, so let's come out of that, right, you can actually do that yourself. Now, once you get used to the syntax of it, let's say we were looking for, again, for the word MacBites, and everything comes up there. But we've also got that coming up, which doesn't have the word MacBites in its title. Nor does that, nor does that, nor do these. So what we can do with that is, up here, without going into the advanced or doing anything else, is just type name : is MacBites, and then anything that doesn't have MacBites in the name is excluded. And you can do that just by typing up there yourself. In the advanced bit here, because we've got it turned on, but you don't have to have it turned on for that to be working, right? But in the advanced, it actually writes this out for you, but it saves you actually doing it. You don't even have to have it open to do that. So that's a simple query going on to advanced and then showing you that you can actually type in your own syntactical query once you've learnt the words. And that's called search prefixes. So name is a great one, but you can see that building up. The best way to learn the syntax, I mean, you can wade through the manual if you want, but the best way is write the query out in here and see what it puts up there, and then in time you'll be able to just quickly type out your own queries at the top there. So a basic query going into an advanced query and then whipping back and showing you prefix queries. Now, there's another type of thing that we looked at last week, and it worked brilliantly. You may have thought that was in relation to storing data, or at least looking at data. And that was, we had some smart groups. And a smart group is like a standard group, only it updates itself automatically. So in the icons here, we've got 292 of them. And some of them will be PDFs, because I do have them as PDFs. Right, let's take the query off that. We're not going to see anything, are we? Right, particularly the Notion ones, the calendar ones, I think. No, it's the checklist ones. Right, I've got lots of different ones here. So I click on that one, and I can see from that it's a PDF. Now, you might be thinking, how do you know that's a PDF? And it's because the kind is showing over here. And that one is a large PNG. It's 1440 by 1440. And this one is the one that I would want to use, which is the 280 version. I'll sort that out, Kim. But yes, you can reuse them. Yes, absolutely you can. So I've got these in a folder and they're all together. You can see I've got a zip file of them. I've got the individual icons. But wouldn't it be tricky as you're looking at them to just pick out the 280 versions? But they've got to live somewhere, which was what I was saying right back at the beginning. They've got to live somewhere. And the place that they would live is probably going to be a group. But ask yourself, how do you want to use these icons or these files or whatever? Because if you want to only use the 280 ones, you might think to yourself, well, clearly I need to create a folder, a group. Good grief, I'll get that right in the end. This is because they're folders on the system. But you could create a group underneath the checklist, a manual group, and you could grab all of the 280s and put them in that group. And if you were organising them at the point of adding them, that's what you might think is a good idea. But that way madness lies. Because when you create another, if a Notion came along and doubled the number of colours they supported, you're going to have to go and manually file all of this stuff. And that's not good. So in some ways, having a silo for icons might actually be a better idea, and link it together with a smart group. So we looked at some smart groups last week, and I put them at the top, and I said these are all the images that are in this database, and these are all the PDF documents. So there we have the PDF versions of those icons, and they are only returned in there. You know, you're not seeing the other checklist icons. There's duplicates, so these are duplicates and replicants. You've got Notion PNG icons, but we didn't distinguish between the sizes. So we've probably got in here icons that are bigger, I would imagine, unless we put a size in. Doesn't look like we did. Or did we? I'd have to check. And then we've got PNG images, which is the whole lot of them. So let's get back to our problem, which is, what if I just wanted the 280 size icons? And maybe, you know, I'm happy enough to come down to Notion icons, but from Notion icons, I'd like to be able to sort of put these together and have like one view from multiple groups. And that's fairly straightforward. You just need to create a new smart group inside the Notion icons. So we'll say this is Notion 280 sized icons. And then you need to work the magic in here, which is exactly the same syntax as you have when you're making a query. So first thing, which database? In fact, you can get more granular than that. The entire database or only part of it? Well, actually, it's just the Notion icons I want to search. I don't want to exclude the subgroups. I want those returned. And these I can ignore. But I do need it where... Now, I could do it with either the name, if the name is always going to have underscore 280 by 280. Alternatively, I could actually go in here and put the width is, and then put 280 pixels. Let's see if that works. So we'll OK on that. And where's it stuck it? Where's it stuck it? It's down here. There is your saved one at the bottom. There's your saved one. I did call that, didn't I? Icons. And it was meant to be in there. There it is. Let's put it at the bottom. So now I've only got the icons that I want, that are that size. Let's check that we have actually got the right icons. So by clicking on the icon, I can then see over here it's 280 pixels. Now, by doing it that way, you can see with these don't have tagged on the end 280 by 280. So if I'd have done it by the name, it wouldn't have come up with those. But if I do it by a property, then I've given myself freedom as to what I can actually name these things. What I would be tempted to do is then go back to Notion and just create a standard group. And then put, like I did with the other one, smart groups. I would put that at the top and then put all of my smart groups in it. At which point you could actually group these together, all of them, in a Notion icons silo and never touch them again. Because you could do everything by opening up your smart groups and using predefined queries. It just depends on your needs. I've been thinking this through in relation to these build with me's. You know, what would be the best way of doing that? And knowing what I've done with Notion in terms of underlying silos that you don't fiddle with, that's probably a really good way to work. And you can see it's very visual as well if what you're working with is visual. Right, the other thing that you can do, now this is where something like the assets management build with me and the GTD build with me, possibly even the course creation, but definitely the other two, is if you've got information that you would like to bring into your database, one of your problems is going to be your inbox is going to get overfull. Trust me on that. You will save things willy-nilly, as we say in the UK, to your inbox. You will mean to sort them out later. And the chances of that are probably fairly slim. you'll probably sit down and have like a mad half hour trying to do it. Do it in batches rather than like do it daily, which will probably drive you insane. So, something to think about. Depending on what it is you're trying to bring into the database. So I'm pondering here how I would do this in this database. And probably it would go like this. I created a new group today, but I didn't name it. So if I name that Keynote Files, in fact, I could probably be even more specific than that, but I'm going to leave it at Keynote Files. And I would like a way to back up my Keynote files because I don't trust iCloud. That way, madness lies. So what I'm going to do is go to iCloud and go to my Keynote folder, which is over here. Keynote. There's all my files. Right. Shall we start with some older ones? Here we go. So we've got here... come on. Right, we've got those. And they are actually, they all say after hours. And I've got my Notion one. I've got the Christmas concert one. That one we've already brought in, but we've got the Magic 8 key. The reason I'm looking at these is I want some that have got different names. Have I been watching your inbox? No, I've been looking at my own, Kim. I do a lot of scanning. So mainly my inbox, the things that would hold me up in terms of it would slow me down from the processing is that they're scans. And I know what I need to do and I haven't set it up yet. And of course I've got that problem that I've got a hideous hack going on to use an older computer to synchronise it all. So the fact it appears in my inbox at all, it is cause for celebration, but it needs organising. So I will definitely do that at the end of this session. Right, so those are the files I'm going to be importing, but you know, I'm working away, and what I don't really want to do is sit here and think, oh, I know what I need to do. I need to open DEVONthink, and I need to open my demo database, and I need to go and find the Keynote files folder, group, and then manually do that. And then next time, when I want to bring some more in, rinse and repeat. It'll drive you insane. So, here's what you could do instead. Right, you've got a global inbox. So this is your global inbox. These are the two things that you saw me put in today. So most stuff that you drag to the clipper up here or you drag and drop in will probably end up in the inbox. And to effectively retrieve your stored information, let's be honest, you need to have it in the right place. And your queries aren't going to work as well. They'll work and you'll be able to find the stuff. But when you go back and think, oh, that was all together in this folder, then you group. That's a definite green drinking game, Mike. I'll be paralytic by now. It won't be there, and then you'll have to run your query again, and you'll just be left feeling, I think I can find it, but it's not where it should be. And that's shifting sand, and you don't want that. So here's what you could do. I'm wondering where I put the one that I created. Just looking down there, oh, yes, I do see it. I do see it. Right, so what I'm going to do here, I don't think it matters where I actually do it, but I'm going to create something called a new smart rule, not to be confused with a group or a folder. No, a group is where stuff lives. A rule, no, actually, a group is where stuff lives, but a smart group is querying all of your data from groups and then pulling back a subset of it. Now, a smart rule is an action, whereas a smart group, no, it's not really an action. It returns to you your data based on the criteria you specify, and that is all it does. It doesn't do anything to them. It just returns them to you. But a smart rule is going to do magic. That's the idea. So this is the dialog box for that, and it does look very similar to setting up a query and interrogating your database, just doing a search. But I'm going to say here, magically file Keynote files. Right, so how are we going to do that? Well, where are they going to arrive? They're going to arrive in the inbox. So look at the inbox. Exclude the subgroups. Well, I'd say yes, to be honest, because you may have subgroups in there that you don't want processing. On the other hand, if you're bringing them in a folder, and I do mean a folder, you drag and drop a folder, then maybe the Keynote files would be in it, so maybe you don't want to exclude it. This is what the kind of thing you've got to think about. Now, first of all, you've got to tell it what you want operating on. So in this case, we want it to be all of the Keynote files. So if we look down here and we said kind, and we could then say, not from there, we're not going to, are we? Not kind, extension, and we're looking for Keynote files. So where my file is a Keynote file. Don't care what it's called, just want it to be my Keynote file. I want them magically to appear in my Keynote files group. Right, when do you want this to happen? And I want it to happen on demand. Right, you've specified what, but you've not told it what to do. You've said, these are the files I want you to do something with, but you've not told it what. And that's where you go down here and you tell it what. What do you want to do? And what I actually want it to do, I don't even want it to cancel it, do I? So down there. These are the things that you could do. So imagine that you've got your inbox and you're saving things via your Dropbox folder, your magic Dropbox folder, that's automatically sending it to the inbox. And you're at a conference and you're doing this 3 times an hour. And you want to make sure that things are working, that it's actually arriving at DEVONthink. You could actually have it send you an email to tell you that's been received, if that was what you wanted to do. Now, what I want to do with it, so not send a mail, not add to the reading list, but maybe you want that. You could open it in the application that's on the system to edit it in. You can run an external script. You can do all kinds of things. Change the name, change the comment, change the label. You can mark it as read, unread, whatever you want to do with it. But what I would like to happen with it is, I want it to be moved, because I want it to be automatically filed. Save me the job. So I then look at where I want it, and it's in the recently used, but if it wasn't, then you just drill down to it, wherever that happened to be. So Keynote files, man done. So let's go through it. That's the name of it. It's going to look in the inbox for files that have an extension of Keynote, and it's going to move them automatically to the Keynote's files. What could go wrong? Let's find out. But again, this plays into the concept of having like a silo where all the Keynote files are together. But at some point, I'm just going to want the MacBites ones, aren't I? We can do that as well. So let's get this bit working first. So let's just OK on that. And that goes down in our smart rules folder down here. So we've got our smart groups there, which have our queries in, which we could rename. So we'll edit that and we'll call it something sensible. MacBites 2019, but it will still do exactly the same thing, and it's down there in the smart groups. So let's fold that up. But down here we've got our magically file Keynotes files smart rule. Right, now we then have I'm trying to get it so we can see everything here, which could be a little bit of an ask. No, I don't want that. No, don't do that with it. Oh no, I've lost my thing, never mind. Right, let's get this aligned to the right. And at the moment, you're going to have to do it, I think. Where should I be? Should I be in here? That'd be easier. Right. I'm going to select some of these. Probably, let's go for the smaller ones, not the epics. But we'll go for that one, and we've already got that one, haven't we? So we'll go for the smaller ones. But they are already local, so it shouldn't take forever. So I've got some that are called After Hours and something else, and I've got others that have other names. And I want to get them in here. So I'm not going to touch DEVONthink. In my sidebar, I have an inbox, and that's the DEVONthink inbox. What I am going to have to be careful of is that I make sure that they're copies, like that. So I'm dragging and dropping them on the inbox, and if all goes well, it tells me that 12 have appeared in the inbox at the top, and it's indexing items down there, but I didn't particularly want them to be indexed, and I'd like them moved, and they're not moving. Why are they not moving? It could need a little bit of time. They pretty much appeared automatically when I did it. I didn't want to click anything to make sure it was working. No, it has actually done it down here. Look, it says 12. So it's matched. Let's have a look. Edit, edit, edit. Why are you not moving them? No, that should work. Oh, wait, is it doing it? No, it's not doing it. It should do that automatically. I'm going to change it to every minute, just to make sure that it does actually do it. There we go. It even knows that 63 is a copy, hence it being in blue. It's telling me I've got a duplicate. Right, so I just had that running. That should work on demand, but I am actually stressing this machine out. Something chronic, so I did see it work. Right, so it's actually put them in the Keynotes group, the Keynote Files group. Now, next thing is, though, in MacBites, it would be rather cool if I could just see the After Hours presentations. And this is how you do that. But I want my Keynote files backed up to there. I don't want to then have to sit and think, oh, which ones are MacBites and which ones aren't. So this is how you do that. You then create a smart group. And you would call this what it is, which is After Hours Presentations. Right, and I want it to search only in the Keynotes Files group. And I'm looking for it to match After Hours space dash space. And OK on that. And that should be somewhere in here. Where's it gone? After Hours Presentations. Why have you found that? You should not have found that. So I'm going to need to change that. So edit this. That clearly isn't enough where all matches. So if I change it to where the name matches and OK that, then the Magic 8 disappears. And then what I do with this smart group is I drag and drop that into the MacBites folder. And now when I'm looking for my Keynote files, they could be anywhere. My Keynote files could be anywhere, but I go in there and there's just my After Hours presentations. And all of that happened automatically by me just dragging and dropping them from here into DEVONthink, and DEVONthink did the rest. Once you've set up the smart rule that moves them from the inbox, so you've still only got 2 items in your inbox, not all of that rubbish you've just added in, they automatically got bounced into there, including the 3, the name of which doesn't match. So I don't want those in my After Hours, but down here, you filtered it down to those, and it all happened automatically. So although we looked at smart groups last week in terms of filing stuff, you can also use them for finding stuff. And if you link them together with smart rules, then you can automate pretty much 95% of the system, I would bet. Now, there's a couple of things we've not looked at in terms of search. So let's have a look at those. I'm going to go back to the top of this database. I happen to know that I have a recording I've made out on the road, uploaded it while I was out via the Magic Dropbox folder, and now I can't find a thing because I didn't file it properly. But I do know it's an audio file, and I do know it's for my Scrivener course. Where is it? Right, if I type in Scrivener, I'm going to get all kinds of things, aren't I? Top 10 tips for Scrivener, blah, blah, blah. But I also get an audio recording. there. But I'm getting too much back. I know that this audio was for a course. So it was a course recording. So I'm probably looking for that. Oh, that's pretty good. So now I'm down to 2 and I can tell instantly it's the top one. But look at it. It's an audio file. I've not specified a file type. And the word Scrivener and course appears nowhere because it's an audio file. And yet look at the score it's given it. It's red hot. It's telling me this is probably the file. And they're right. But how? And it's because I've said everywhere. And if we look at what we've got over here in the info, that just says audio recording. So it's not coming from there. It knows the geolocation, but we're not looking at that because we're not moving. We're back in lockdown. So let's have a look. And we have some comments. And it says Scrivener course recording. And when you do a search, it searches the comments as well. And again, now you're aware of that, you could link up the Finder comments in here with a smart group or a smart rule, and it will automatically process it based on that. So that's one thing. Right, another thing is, let's say that I know I did something at some point about Snagit. I talked about Snagit. And I can't remember anything other than that. I don't know what file type it is. I don't know when it was. I just remember that I did actually take some... I remember taking some screenshots and I remember writing something. And other than that, I don't know. So I'm going to start with a simple search and we'll put in Snagit. Boom. Straight there. Oh, of course. I talked about it as an alternative to ScreenFlow. And if I go down this file, which is a Keynote file, see the little Keynote icon? There's Snagit. Yep, that's where it was. And on the same basis, we come out of there, go back up here. So I don't want you to think that I'm cheating in any kind of way, that it's in the database or whatever. It's not. Right? Also, there is one file that has the word ScreenFlick in it. And another one that has I show you. Now, obviously, these are the alternatives. But if I put in I show you... oh, we didn't like that. Now, it is case sensitive, isn't it? So it might have needed that. I see it's not looking in all the databases. But it is looking in all the databases. It finds it, which is down there. I show you instant. So if I've ever put anything together in Keynote, if I had copies of my Keynote files in here... Or, of course, I could index them from the cloud. Maybe. I'm not too sure about the wisdom of that, but never mind. You've got instant search and retrieval. My other one was Screenium, wasn't it? That's going to give me exactly the same one. I'm going to click on it. Screenium's one of the options that I put in here. But I also remember, and I actually do this, it's criminal, but I do it. I really do. I will start making a script for one thing, and then I'll think, oh, I could do something else with that. And I'll make the notes where I am. And then I'll think, where on earth was that? Case in point, I had a MacBites poster, and it must have been around the time that we launched Brooklands 196, which would have been April 2019. And Mike said, oh, we need a graphic of, X size by Y size. And I'm sat in Designer, and I said, just a minute. And I threw it together in Designer inside the MacBites folder. Could I find it 3 months later? Well, not if it's in the MacBites file, no. And I do that all the time. I know, I want looking up. So I definitely remember doing a script for a course, and I'm sure it was Affinity Designer, and I put some examples in. Right, well, look at what we've got down here. I've got a scripts folder. That's a good place to start. Right, oh dear. It's Affinity Publisher and Scrivener. That's it. So I don't have a script or any notes in here at all for Affinity Designer. That wasn't the most wise thing I ever did, was it? So I need to search for them. They could be anywhere. Maybe they weren't even in the demo database. Maybe they're in the inbox. I can't remember. Right. But I do know I mentioned Affinity Designer. And surely it would have been a script for Affinity Designer. Oh, it says script for Affinity Publisher, but look what I did at the bottom. I've got script for Affinity and Affinity there. It hasn't found the word designer, which is quite interesting. I spelt it right. Yes, I have. Don't know why it hasn't highlighted that. But it's found my notes, these notes here, despite the fact they're in a file that says Affinity Publisher. So now I can extract them and put them where they should be, rather than in the Affinity Publisher file. Right, and another thing that so we've done that one, done that one, done that one. The one thing we haven't done is, let's say this top 10 tips for Scrivener. No, 7 top tips for Scrivener. Let's have a look down there. So let's say we're looking for, did I put any tips in about the word synopsis? That would be, I would like to know that. Now, obviously, if I go up here and I start typing that, it's going to bring back more than I particularly want it to bring back. Now I don't know which file it's in. Right? You know, it's giving me that, and I actually wanted to drill down into the file, not be given a set of search results. So that's not really what I want. It was this that I particularly wanted to see. Yes, I can see that down there, but you know, I wouldn't have seen the other files, and I don't know which one of these is which. So let's forget all of that and let's go back to the inbox and start again. Right. Leave that alone if what you want to do is search within a file, because your panel on the right has lots of tabs at the top, and one of them at the end will return the information just in here. So I want to see synopsis in here, and it will actually tell you and give you a context for it as well. And as you click on these, it will actually take you to it. And I would probably choose to make that wider so I can see the whole thing. There we go. And it will actually take you through it. So you use the panel search when you're searching within a file. You use the search at the top when you're searching to find a file. Right, one thing to think about is there is another option, which is a different type of search. So if we go to Tools and we go to Inspectors and we go to Concordance, let's do a list. All right, that takes you over here. Does anybody know what a concordance file is? You remember what a concordance file is, Mike? Mm. Yeah? It's kind of a scientific examination of a document where it iterates through it and does like calculations of how many times a word appears. Very, very powerful. In Word, it's in Word to create indices at the back of a book. So what it's saying here is it's giving you information in 3 different ways. Either a list, a cloud, or a graph. So in here, can we widen this a bit so we can read it? Let's make it a bit wider so we can see it. Can these move? Do you want to move them? Want to make them wider? Doesn't look like it. No, it goes that way. Right, the most frequently used word is the, followed by a, to, you, of, and Scrivener. Well, that's good. So there is 36 instances of the word Scrivener in that document. The use for this would be for you to see, are you overusing a word in your work, or is this likely to be more relevant to you as a piece of research because it mentions a certain word many, many, many times. It also gives each word a weight, and this is what it uses for its algorithm to determine what to return in the search results. So that's a list of it, but it can also display the same information in a cloud, so a word cloud. Obviously there's only really the word Scrivener that makes any sense in that. You've also got a graph as well, which will show you the frequency of words, etc. Now that really is getting very, very deep. I don't think I've ever used that, other than in a demonstration. I guess you would if it was academic research and that was really, really relevant to you. Or maybe it's a long paper and you want to make sure it's relevant to you before you start. So situations like that, I wish I'd have had DEVONthink when I was doing legal research for a case that was going to the High Court. And what we had to do was, the research for this case was just binders and binders and binders full of medical research articles. And we had to get every single one of them, even if we used a system called Medline. And even if it only had, we were looking for arachniditis or myadil, and there was a few other words. And you wouldn't know how many times that word was used. But if you had your articles in here, and you had to wade through 3,000 articles and the barrister needs it tomorrow, you could look in there at the list and think, okay, is myadil used a lot? Is arachniditis used a lot? And if you find that they're like two of the most frequently used words, if you ignore stuff like have, are, be, it, thee, then that one's probably worth reading first. And then you could categorise them by relevance in terms of, something only needs one reference to be amazingly relevant, but you've got more chance that something will be relevant if it mentions things a lot. So there may be like 2 medical papers, and one may say causation of arachniditis, myadil, and it might go on about that endlessly. The other paper, let's say it only mentions that once in that paper, but it says that in their experience, it causes it. So a myadil injection causes arachniditis, but it only mentions it once. You get another paper, and it's talking about it all the way through, but what it's saying, so it's in a way it's more relevant because it mentions myadil and arachniditis 100 times. But when I read it, it's telling me it doesn't cause it. That's bad news for me as a legal researcher. I put that one to the bottom of the pile. Let's go back to the one that does mention it. But it does give you an opportunity to kind of prioritise your research based on frequency of the words appearing that are relevant to you. Again, I have never really used that much. Can you see yourself using that on an Excel article, Mike?
No.
No, me neither. But I'm sure for some researchers that's absolutely critical. Of much more significance to me is structuring the data in such a way that I can get to the data that I want when I want it. And if I can plant magic beans in my inbox to automatically transfer content, even better. Even better. I could automatically have all my scans put into a scanning inbox. So I can process those separately. I could even have them automatically filed into groups by year if I wanted. You could do anything with it. That's the key that I said, don't start designing your database in week 1. Wait until we've looked at least week 3, but possibly even take it to the maintenance side and then look backwards. Or maybe even the mobile side and look backwards, depending on how important it is to you that you get some kind of mobile access. But that is how you effectively retrieve stored information in DEVONthink. Do you enjoy that, Mike? Don't say no.
Yes.
Right. Good. Good boy. Good boy.
You enjoy the array functions?
What I heard of them, yes. Can't say fairer than that, can I? No.
Hooray.
What?
Hooray.
Yes. Yes. Now, we are back next week. How is it the 7th of August next week?
I was wondering that, Mr.
It's all right, back on lockdown. We're going to be in lockdown till about 2025 at this rate. But never mind. Can you handle over a year of marooned? We'll threaten people. That's what we'll do. We'll threaten people with carrying on marooned until we're let out. And then they can write to Boris and tell him to let us out. But we will be back with part 4.
Kim wanted to know why some of the words were lighter than others.
I think it's to do with some words are considered to be like filler words and other words are like keywords. So the more unusual ones, like the examples of myadil that I gave and stuff like that. I mean, it's very, very clever, but in terms of what it brings back for an average person, I would think people would hardly touch it, but that could be me. Would you use it, Kim? I mean, I know it would be amazing for medical research, legal research. It would be stunning. But for articles that I'm likely to read, I must admit, I've left it alone. So we are obviously still going to be going on our deep dive series. Next week is... Come on, off you toddle. Next week is part 4, maintenance and system management. So I'm going to deliberately attempt to break my database and then show you how to fix it. Oh, I love to live dangerously. Then we've got part 5, which is going mobile with DEVONthink to go. Now, you've seen what you can do at the DEVONthink end. DEVONthink to go is nothing like DEVONthink, but if you had DEVONthink on your desktop set up optimally, like you've seen tonight, with things automatically happening, then you could be filing and working away on DEVONthink to go, and you come back to your desktop and everything's filed and you're good to start working. So that's why I said wait until the last part and then think about how to build the databases. But after that, we've got 3 build with me's, which is I'll actually build a working system, asset management. The week after, I'm doing GTD, and then I'm doing a course creation system. If you have a particular build with me in mind, let me know. You never know. I might be persuaded to either add another one or swap it in some kind of way. But if you're on my VIP list, you will have got exclusive notification of what won today. I had a poll. We can actually have a poll in the emails, can't we? Need to investigate that one. I was running a poll to see what session I would do next live. So it's not an after hours, it's a dedicated session live for YouTube. And what won was how to create a newsletter in Affinity Publisher. We even have a date. Get your diaries out. It is, come on, there we go. It's the 13th of August and it's 8 o'clock British Summer Time, which is an hour after Marooned usually starts. So that'll give you some kind of context for it. There was a link in the email for you to work out where the time was where you are. Obviously, it will be available on demand later. But it's happening. It's happening in 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks last night it's happening. In the meanwhile, of course, you can always catch up on demand with Marooned. Marooned is still alive and kicking, isn't it, Mike? It's still going. We're back in lockdown, so it's genuine.
True.
Yeah, we thought, 20 weeks, it'll be fine. Oh, now we're back in lockdown. But you can subscribe to the feed. And you wouldn't want to miss Marooned, would you? Because, the things we've looked at this week are probably best left on Marooned rather than get YouTube upset by talking about them.
True.
But if you just look at the titles of the shows, you'll get the kind of ideas. Oh, do we have fun? In the meanwhile, we love you guys. If you love us, could you give us a like? Makes a huge difference with YouTube. They do like people who like things. I talked about my VIP list. If you would like to be on my VIP list, you get first dibs on the voting and on picking the topic. And I'm actually sending out mails. It's a miracle, isn't it, Mike? Nothing short of a miracle. We also have the MacBites list, and the MacBites list is where you will get first dibs on After Hours and the MacBites podcast. Is Jonathan still awake? If not, can I just say 129? You can also join us on Slack, where we carry the conversation on all week. It's fantastic.
Johnny's nodded off.
Johnny's nodded
He's
off.
Not replied, so
he nodded off in my bit. He was awake in yours. He was saying how fabulous it was. Oh, I might have to spank young Jonathan.
Don't say that too loud. He gets banned.
No, I think that's okay. I know some words that you can't say, but they wouldn't be words that I would be saying anyway. So, yes, we will be back next week. In the meanwhile, I need to get that, don't I, up over here, where I've got poster. That's today's poster. I need to get next week's poster. There we go. Now, is Jonathan really asleep? Oh, Jonathan. Mind you, he did say he thought he'd make midnight. He didn't mention 1:45, did he?
No.
Ooh. Well, I've got the copy that you sent me, Kim. That's great. If you've got a complete one, that would be fantastic too. So whip that to me, then I can have a look. Do you print it out or does it go to a PDF? Let me know that as well. I'm wondering how many people are going to turn up and they're going to be printing it and other people are going to be PDFing it. I mean, I can cover both, not a problem. Glad you enjoyed it, Kim. Is your mind now boggling with DEVONthink? DEVONthink is stunning. It is very, very, very clever. You are very welcome, Debbie. Very, very welcome. I'm calling it that Jonathan's asleep. Shall we do a countdown? Like we do when we go live with by request. Shall we have a countdown from 5?
To see if he wakes up.
Yeah. We'll whisper it though.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1. Right, no VAR, that's it. Once it's on the screen, it's on the screen. This was where we were. Oh, Jonathan. This is where we are now. Somebody's in double figures. Can't believe it, Jonathan. Didn't he make it to the end of the longest show ever? Oh, no, he didn't, did he? It was a week before. Right, goes to PDF. Excellent. Thank you for that, Kim. But if you've got a full one, that would be good. Is it always the same layout? Does it depend on, like number of pages and stuff? Have you noticed now they're not printing the church newsletter? It's gone from 8 pages to 14. Funny that, isn't it? In fact, she even had an odd number on one. In fact, I don't think what she's got would print out. 14 pages wouldn't print out. 16 would.
True.
But you'd only have a fit.
Did it say this page is intentionally left blank?
No, it didn't.
I dedicate this newsletter to Father Ned.
There was a fabulous, fabulous piece in it. The name of who wrote it is in there, but I don't particularly know them. So I don't know if they've got it from like a site that gives you positive quotes and stuff. But it was a huge, long thing. It was about 3 pages. And you know how I'm supposed to proofread it? 3 pages and I'd go blind. I thought I'm bound to make a mistake in 3 pages. So I copied the text out and I put it into pages and had Siri read it to me. Siri's not going to be a happy boy, is he? He read it beautifully, though. Although he does say, because I had him read something else out while he was doing it. Do you know he says databases?
No.
But he's English, he should say databases. He's not the Aussie one. Or the Irish one. I must correct Siri on that. Naughty Siri. But Siri read it out to me and it was wonderful. The basis of this piece was, I'll dig it out because I'm sure I can share it. It's in the church newsletter. I might as well just share the church newsletter. It was saying, is COVID... What did it say? Is COVID the cure? Or, let's have a look. PDF expert. Where are you? Recent documents. There we go. Newsletter. It was wonderful. I thought it was fantastic anyway. Let's have a look. What if the virus is the medicine? And it goes on for a couple of pages, but the gist of it is that, it details how hard it's been, etc. for people. But they're also pointing out that, like, they're not asking you to go off to war or Mars or anything. And that we were already at a sort of tipping point of crisis with the planet and everything else. And that maybe it's time to reflect. But I thought it was a very, very good piece. You've not read it yet, have you?
No.
I did tell you it was there, though. I'll pass that along to you, Mike, then you can have a look. And then you can say if you thought it was any good or not. Jonathan is definitely asleep. How could he have gone from having a 5-point lead to being behind by 2? I'm not sure either. But never mind. Let's get rid of that and push that over. Good morning, Jonathan. Another point to me. If I get those 6 shows out and then get more out, oh, you are so beaten. And Kim's in charge. She's the umpire and those were the rules. Loving it. So do I get some ice cream now? Because I am absolutely boiling hot. My computer did well, didn't it? Don't want to tempt fate in the last couple of minutes, but hey, it's still going. Mind you, it has got a fan on it. Is it still warm? It's quite cool on one side. DEVONthink is coming in handy for my card research and assets. Oh, Debbie, that's good. That is good. Hopefully the asset management one will be brilliant for what you need. It'll use pretty much the features that we've seen, but I think when you're doing a demonstration of features, it's a bit like a shopping list. You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. But when you start building a system, it then becomes clear why that was important, you know, and it just becomes clearer. There'll be things that you don't touch. There's no way I'm going near a concordance file for an asset management system. No way. But there would be other things that I used that, yes, you've seen, but I think it would click better of like, oh, yes, that's when that would be perfect. So that's why I decided to add the build with me's to it. So that hopefully will come in really handy for Debbie. She's already kind of doing it for assets. Brilliant. Oh, Kim, I missed that bit. I love marooned. We love marooned. And we really are marooned. Boris said it's going to be looked at every week, but then in the next breath said nothing's going to change for a fortnight. What can I say? Kim says ice cream sounds good. Yeah, I definitely need some ice cream. I only had one meal today. I mean, it was my own fault for the time I went to bed, the time I got up and everything else. But I have actually only had one meal. But what I have had, Kim, is one of my vitamin D pills. I was expecting from the size of the bottle something that was the size of a horse suppository. When I opened the bottle, they were that tiny I could barely see them. But I have them. They were on offer today, special offer, so I decided I would get Mike to get a bottle as well. You can only have one special offer. So I now have more than enough vitamin D pills if this goes on for 2 years, which the way it's going, 2 years, could possibly be underestimating it. I can't see this ever going back to normal, you know, Mike.
No.
We really seriously question whether we actually need 2 cars anymore, seeing as though we don't move. Mind you, we wouldn't want to get into a taxi either. Definitely need to go somewhere, to be honest, for the car's sake, if not mine. We'll get thinking about that. Oh, and the other thing I need to do is do the hedge, isn't it? But that wasn't happening today when it was 33 degrees and I was lying there in a stupor. They did. They were so tiny. I'll take some pickies for next week, Kim. I opened the bottle and I thought, this is empty. The bottle's probably about 5 inches tall. Pretty wide, plastic thing. And there's some pills at the bottom, but they actually are they're a little fraction bigger than homeopathic pills. I don't know if you probably don't touch homeopathic pills, but if you do, they're like that, really tiny. But at least, yeah, my mum used to go on about pills, didn't she? She loved her homeopathy and her natural remedies, and then she'd order them and they'd arrive. And, you know, a horse, if it was a horse suppository, the horse wouldn't be pleased. And she'd say, I can't swallow these. There she was, carving them up. Oh, bless her. Happy memories, eh? Not really. It's like, oh, she's off again. Oh, well. So, I'm heading off and I'm getting some ice cream. I have mine on permanent charge, Kim, almost. So, mine, I don't actually drive, even when we're not in lockdown, I don't particularly drive that much. So, yeah, I need to get it charged up. But I think it actually, charging it's fine, but I think it, you know, you do need to go somewhere. But obviously at the moment we're in lockdown, so we're not going anywhere. I can't even drive around the block. So maybe trickle charge it every couple of weeks and leave it at that. Do you know it's going to come as a culture shock when it needs an MOT, isn't it? He's going to say, oh, you've done 7 miles since last year. Yeah, that was driving to the garage and back. Not even joking. It's got to that level. Right, okay then. Sooner we finish, the sooner I can have my ice cream. So that's what I'm going to do. So I hope you all found that incredibly useful. You might need to wait till week 5 to pull it together. Or maybe even one of the build with me's, but hopefully it will all pull together. So I will say good night from me.
Good night from me.
And we'll both see you next time. Good night, guys.